The cameras were already flashing when Lena realized she was kissing the wrong man. 30 seconds ago, she'd been lost in a marble hallway, searching for the bathroom. Now she stood in a ballroom packed with Manhattan's elite, locked in an embrace with a stranger whose lips tasted like expensive whiskey and devastating mistakes. When he finally pulled back, his gray eyes held something between relief and warning. "Play along," he whispered against her mouth, "and I'll pay you $50,000. Before Lena could breathe, could think, could run, the applause started. If you want to see how a lie this big could possibly survive, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Lena's story travels. The dress wasn't even hers. Lena Brooks stood in front of the bathroom mirror of the Plaza Hotel, tugging at the white cocktail dress her roommate had shoved into her hands 3 hours earlier. The fabric was too tight across her ribs, too loose at the hips, and the whole thing smelled faintly of Nicole's perfume, something floral and expensive that Lena could never afford on her salary from the coffee shop. "It's just for tonight," Nicole had insisted, practically wrestling Lena into the dress while her own date waited in the living room. "My cousin's wedding reception is at some fancy hotel, and I need you to return these gift bags to the event coordinator. Please, Lena, I'll owe you forever." Forever apparently meant Nicole disappearing the second they arrived, leaving Lena standing in an unfamiliar hallway with 3 silver gift bags and absolutely no idea where the event coordinator's office was supposed to be. The hotel was a maze. Lena had already taken 2 wrong turns, passed the same ugly painting of a horse 3 times, and was starting to suspect the universe was personally mocking her. Her phone was dead, because of course it was, and the few staff members she'd seen had breezed past her like she was invisible. She smoothed the dress one more time, grabbed the bags, and stepped back into the hallway. That's when she heard the music. It drifted from somewhere to her left, elegant and swelling, the kind of music she'd only ever heard in movies about people whose problems could be solved with a good lawyer and a trust fund. Lena hesitated, then followed the sound. Maybe someone at whatever event this was could point her in the right direction. The hallway opened into a massive foyer, all gold fixtures and crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. Lena clutched the gift bags tighter, suddenly aware that she looked exactly like what she was, someone who didn't belong. A man in a tuxedo appeared at her elbow so suddenly she nearly dropped everything. "There you are." His voice was tight with badly concealed panic. "Mr. Vaughn has been asking for you. This way, quickly." "I think you have the wrong—" But he was already moving, one hand hovering near her elbow, in a gesture that was more command than courtesy. Lena found herself being guided through an archway, down 3 steps, and suddenly, the ballroom hit her like a physical force. It was enormous, glittering, packed with people wearing clothes that cost more than Lena made in 6 months. A string quartet played near the far wall. Waiters moved through the crowd with trays of champagne in glasses so delicate they looked like they'd shatter if you breathed on them wrong. And everywhere, there were people staring at her. "I really think there's been a mistake," Lena tried again, but the tuxedo man was already melting back into the crowd, leaving her stranded at the edge of the ballroom in a borrowed dress and shoes that were half a size too small. She should leave. She should absolutely turn around and find Nicole and get the hell out of this place before something went wrong. Finally, the voice came from directly behind her, low and rough, and edged with something that might have been relief or exhaustion, or both. Before Lena could turn, a hand wrapped around her wrist, warm, certain, impossible to ignore. "I thought you weren't coming." Lena spun and her breath caught. The man standing behind her was beautiful in the way that expensive things were beautiful. Sharp lines, perfect tailoring, eyes the color of a winter sky. He was tall, probably 30-something, with dark hair that looked artfully messy in a way that definitely wasn't an accident. His tuxedo fit him like it had been built specifically for his body, which it probably had. But it was his eyes that made Lena freeze. They were desperate. "I'm sorry," she managed, "but I think you've mistaken me for—" "Not here." His grip on her wrist tightened, not painful but firm. "Smile. My grandmother is watching." "Your what?" "Smile," he repeated, and this time it sounded less like a request and more like a man trying not to drown. "Please." Lena's brain was screaming at her to pull away, to explain, to do literally anything except what she did next, which was smile. It wasn't even a good smile. Her cheeks felt stiff, her lips trembled slightly, and she was 90% sure she looked like someone had told her to smile at gunpoint. But the man's shoulders dropped half an inch, and some of that desperate edge left his face. "Thank you," he breathed. Then louder, pitched to carry to the watching crowd. "You look beautiful." "I look confused," Lena muttered through her frozen smile. "That makes two of us." His hand slid from her wrist to her hand, threading their fingers together in a gesture that felt both performative and strangely intimate. "Just follow my lead for the next 60 seconds, and then I'll explain everything." 60 seconds before what? He didn't answer. Instead, he turned to face the ballroom, pulling Lena slightly in front of him and raised his other hand in a small wave. The room erupted in applause. Lena's stomach dropped straight through the marble floor. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed from somewhere near the stage. A man in his 60s with silver hair and a microphone, grinning like this was the best night of his life. "I believe we have an announcement to make." "What is happening?" Lena whispered, but the man behind her, the stranger whose hand was wrapped around hers like a lifeline, just squeezed her fingers once. "Play along," he murmured, so quiet she almost didn't hear it over the applause. "Please, I'll make it worth your while." The silver-haired man was still talking, something about love and family and the future, but Lena couldn't focus on the words because the stranger was moving, tugging her gently forward, and suddenly they were walking through the crowd. People reached out to touch her arm, her shoulder, murmuring congratulations that made absolutely no sense. An older woman with diamonds the size of grapes actually had tears in her eyes. Someone else, a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne ad, gave the stranger a thumbs up that seemed both genuine and somehow threatening. "Almost there," the stranger said under his breath. "Almost where?" They stopped in the center of the ballroom, directly under the largest chandelier Lena had ever seen. The crowd had formed a loose circle around them, every face turned in their direction, every phone raised to capture whatever was about to happen. The stranger turned to face her fully, and Lena saw something flicker across his expression. Apology, maybe, or resignation. "I'm sorry," he said, just for her. Then he kissed her. The world went very quiet and very loud at the same time. His hand came up to cup the side of her face, gentle, despite the urgency in the gesture. His lips were warm, careful, tasting like whiskey and something darker Lena couldn't name. For 3 seconds, 4, 5, she was too shocked to move, too overwhelmed to process anything except the feeling of his mouth on hers and the eruption of sound surrounding them. Cameras flashed. People cheered. Somewhere in the crowd, a woman actually screamed with joy. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were still desperate, but there was something else there now too. Gratitude, maybe. Or guilt. "Thank you," he whispered. Lena's voice came out small and shaky. "Who the hell are you?" "Caleb Vaughn." He said it like she should recognize the name. When her expression didn't change, something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "We need to talk. Somewhere private." "I need to leave," Lena said, but her legs felt disconnected from her brain, and the crowd was pressing in closer, and she could see at least 6 people actively filming them on their phones. "Please?" Caleb's hand found hers again. 5 minutes. I'll explain everything, and then if you want to walk away, I won't stop you." It was the "if you want to walk away" that caught her. Like he knew she should. Like he expected her to. 5 minutes? Lena heard herself say. Caleb's relief was visible. He turned to the crowd, that practiced smile sliding back into place, and raised their joined hands like boxers after a fight. The applause somehow got louder. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he called out, his voice carrying easily across the ballroom. "This woman has just made me the happiest man in New York." The crowd ate it up. People were wiping their eyes, raising champagne glasses, shouting things Lena couldn't quite make out over the roar in her ears. Caleb leaned in close, his lips near her ear. "There's a door behind the stage. Can you make it that far?" Lena nodded because speaking seemed impossible. They moved through the crowd like celebrities at a premiere, Caleb's hand never leaving hers, people parting to let them through while simultaneously reaching out to touch them, to offer congratulations, to be part of whatever moment they thought they were witnessing. An older woman stepped into their path, elegant, white-haired, with the kind of bone structure that suggested she'd been devastating in her youth. Her eyes were sharp as she looked at Lena, assessing, calculating. "Grandmother," Caleb said, and Lena felt him tense beside her. "So this is her." The woman's voice was cultured, amused, dangerous. "The mysterious actress who finally captured my grandson's attention." Actress. The word hit Lena like cold water. "We'll talk later," Caleb said firmly. "Let me introduce her to everyone properly first." The grandmother's smile didn't waver. "Of course, darling, take your time." But her eyes stayed on Lena for a beat too long, and in that look, Lena saw something that made her skin prickle. This woman knew. Somehow, she knew this was all wrong. They kept moving. Through the crowd, past the stage, through a door that Caleb opened with his free hand while keeping Lena pressed against his side like he was afraid she'd bolt if he let go. Which, to be fair, she was definitely considering. The door closed behind them, cutting off the noise of the party. Suddenly, Lena could hear her own heartbeat again, thundering against her ribs. They were in a small sitting room, elegant but clearly designed for privacy. No windows, thick carpet that swallowed sound, furniture that looked expensive but comfortable. Caleb finally released her hand and stepped back, running both hands through his hair in a gesture that destroyed its careful styling and somehow made him look more human. "Okay," Lena said, and was proud that her voice only shook a little. "Start talking." Caleb looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the kiss. His expression cycled through several emotions too quickly for Lena to track before settling on something that might have been respect. "You're not Gabrielle Chen." "No," Lena said slowly. "I'm not whoever that is. She's an actress. The actress. The one I hired to pretend to be my fiancé tonight." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She was supposed to be wearing a white dress. When I saw you in the hallway, you thought I was her. I thought you were her." He scrubbed his face with both hands. "I didn't even look at your face. I just saw the dress and assumed, and then we were already in the ballroom and I couldn't exactly stop and ask for ID." Lena's brain was struggling to catch up. "You hired someone to pretend to be your fiancé?" "Yes." "Why?" Caleb moved to a small bar in the corner and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. He held up the bottle in silent question, but Lena shook her head. She needed to think clearly, and alcohol wasn't going to help with that. "My grandmother," Caleb said, taking a long drink, "is 83 years old. She's also dying." The bluntness of it made Lena flinch. "Heart failure," he continued. "The doctors give her 6 months, maybe less. And the only thing she wants before she dies, the only thing she asks for, is to see me settled, married, happy." He said the last word like it was foreign. "She's been asking for 2 years, and every time I tell her I'm too busy, too focused on work, she looks at me like I'm breaking her heart." "So you hired an actress." "So I hired an actress," he confirmed. "Someone to play the part for a few months, make my grandmother happy, let her pass in peace. Gabrielle came highly recommended, professional, discreet, convincing. She was supposed to meet me in the East hallway at 7:30. When she didn't show, I went looking and I found you. In a white dress." "In a white dress." He met her eyes. "And I made a choice. A stupid, desperate, panicked choice. And I'm sorry. Lena should leave. She should absolutely turn around, walk out of this room, find Nicole, and forget this entire nightmare ever happened." "The kiss," she said instead. "You didn't have to kiss me." Something flickered across Caleb's face. "My cousin Marcus was watching. He's been waiting for me to screw up, to show any kind of weakness, so he can make a play for control of my company. If I'd hesitated, if I'd looked uncertain, he would have known something was wrong. So you used me." "Yes." No hesitation, no justification, just acknowledgement. "I used you. And I'm sorry for that too." The whiskey in his glass caught the light as he drained it. He set the glass down carefully, then turned to face her fully. "Here's what happens next. You walk out that door, go back to your life, and never think about this again. I'll tell everyone there was a misunderstanding, that the engagement isn't official yet, and we'll both move on." "Or?" His eyebrows rose. "Or? You said, here's what happens next, like there was only one option. But you're a businessman, right? So you've definitely got a second option. What is it?" Caleb studied her for a long moment, and Lena got the sense he was recalculating something. The second option is insane. Try me. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned it to show her a number that made Lena's stomach lurch. $50,000. That's what I was going to pay Gabrielle for 3 months of work. Public appearances, family dinners, the occasional photo op. Nothing physical, nothing inappropriate. Just playing a part. You want me to be your fake fiancé? I want you to be my real fiancé who happens to be fake. He pocketed the phone. Look, I know it sounds crazy, but we already announced it. There are probably 50 photos and videos out there already. If I backtrack now, the press will eat me alive. My grandmother will know I lied, and Marcus will use the chaos to make his move. So I'd be saving you. You'd be helping me, Caleb corrected, and I'd be paying you well for it. Lena thought about her apartment, where the heat barely worked and the ceiling leaked every time it rained. She thought about her student loans, her credit card debt, the second job she'd been meaning to apply for but never had time because she was already working 60 hours a week. She thought about her mother back in Pennsylvania, who still sent her $20 every birthday even though Lena knew she couldn't afford it. $50,000. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. What would I have to do? Caleb's expression shifted, became more businesslike. Attend events with me. Have dinner with my family once or twice a week. Let people see us together. Be convincing. He paused. And deal with my daughter. Your what? Emma, she's 5. For the first time since they'd entered the room, his face softened. Her mother died 3 years ago. Cancer. Emma doesn't really remember her. I'm sorry, Lena said automatically. Don't be. You didn't know. He moved to a chair and sat, suddenly looking exhausted. Emma's shy, doesn't trust easily. She'll probably hate you on sight. You're really selling this. The corner of his mouth twitched. I'm being honest. This won't be easy. My family will judge you. The press will scrutinize everything you do. You'll have to smile through dinners where people treat you like you're not good enough, and you'll have to pretend it doesn't bother you. What makes you think I'd pretend? His eyes sharpened. What? You're assuming I'd have to pretend it doesn't bother me. What if it actually doesn't? Caleb leaned back, reassessing her again. Who are you? Lena Brooks. I'm 30 years old. I work at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. I have $19 in my checking account and an apartment where the hot water only works 3 days a week. She crossed her arms. People have been judging me my entire life, Mr. Vaughn. Rich people, poor people, everyone in between. So no, I don't think your family is going to say anything I haven't heard before. Silence stretched between them. 50,000, Caleb said finally. But that's the baseline. If you make it through 3 months without breaking character, there's a bonus. 25,000 more. 75 total. 75 total. Lena's heart was hammering. This was crazy. This was absolutely, completely crazy. What happens after 3 months? My grandmother will either pass or she'll be stable enough that we can stage a quiet breakup. Either way, you get your money, I get peace of mind, and we both walk away. And if someone finds out it's fake, they won't. But if they do, Caleb's jaw tightened, then we'll both be crucified by the press. My family will disown me. I'll probably lose my company, and you'll be labeled a gold digger for the rest of your life. Jesus. So don't let anyone find out. Lena walked to the window, except there wasn't a window, so she ended up just pacing in front of the wall, trying to think. $75,000. 3 months. How hard could it be to smile and play dress-up for rich people? Except she'd seen the way Caleb's grandmother looked at her, and she'd felt the weight of all those cameras, all those eyes. This wasn't just playing dress-up. This was lying to a dying woman. This was fraud, probably. This was, I need rules, she heard herself say. Caleb straightened. What? If I'm doing this, and I haven't said yes yet, I need rules, boundaries, things in writing. Done. What do you want? Lena turned to face him. No one knows it's fake except us. Not my friends, not your family, no one. If we're going to lie, we lie all the way. Agreed. Nothing physical unless it's absolutely necessary for appearances. And I mean absolutely. Agreed. If your daughter hates me, you don't force it. I won't make a 5-year-old pretend to like me for your grandmother's benefit. Caleb hesitated, then nodded. Fair. And if I want out, if this gets too much, If something goes wrong, I can walk away. No questions, no guilt trips. You keep whatever money you've earned up to that point. Deal. They stared at each other across the small room, and Lena realized she was actually going to do this. She was actually going to become this stranger's fake fiancé. I need to know something, Caleb said quietly. Why? Why what? Why are you even considering this? $50,000 is a lot of money, but most people wouldn't even think about signing up for something this insane. His eyes searched her face. So why are you different? Lena thought about lying, about giving him some noble reason, some story about student loans or helping her family. But if they were going to do this, if they were going to pull off this massive lie, they might as well start with one truth. Because I'm tired, she said simply. I'm tired of working 3 jobs and still being broke. I'm tired of choosing between groceries and heat. I'm tired of people looking through me like I don't matter because I don't have the right address or the right clothes. She met his eyes. You're offering me a chance to fix all of that. Maybe not forever, but for long enough that I can breathe. So yeah, I'm considering it. Caleb nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? Okay? He stood, pulling his phone out again. I'm going to text my lawyer. We'll have a contract drawn up tonight. You'll sign it tomorrow after you've had a chance to read it and have your own lawyer look it over. I can't afford a lawyer. I'll pay for one. A good one. Someone who doesn't work for me. You're not signing anything until you fully understand what you're agreeing to. That surprised her. Why? Because I'm asking you to lie for me, not be an idiot for me. He was already typing. What's your address? I'll have a car pick you up tomorrow at 10. We need to go shopping. Shopping? You can't show up to dinners with my family dressed like... He stopped, wincing. That came out wrong. Dressed like a poor person? Dressed like someone who didn't know she was going to be engaged to a billionaire this morning. He looked up from his phone. You'll need clothes, jewelry, all of it. We'll get it tomorrow. Lena's head was spinning. This morning, she'd been worried about her shift at the coffee shop. Now she was discussing wardrobes with a man who probably spent more on his watch than she made in a year. I need to find my roommate, she said. Nicole. She's here somewhere. The woman who gave you the dress? Yeah, how did you... You said it was borrowed, I assumed. He pocketed his phone. Go find her. Tell her you ran into an old friend, whatever. Don't mention me, don't mention any of this. Can you do that? I've been lying to people about being fine for 10 years. I think I can handle one more night. Something shifted in Caleb's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Tomorrow at 10. Don't be late. Or what? You'll fire me from being your fake fiancé? Or I'll assume you came to your senses. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry. About the kiss. About all of it. This isn't how I wanted this to go. How did you want it to go? Honestly, I wanted Gabrielle to show up, play her part, and disappear in 3 months without me ever having to actually care about her. He met Lena's eyes. But something tells me you're going to be significantly more complicated. Is that a problem? Ask me in 3 months. He opened the door, checking the hallway before gesturing for her to go first. Lena stepped past him, very aware of how close they were in the narrow doorway, how she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle that probably had a French name. Caleb? He looked down at her. Yeah? Your grandmother. Does she really not have long? His face went carefully blank. 6 months if we're lucky, 4 if we're not. Then I hope this works, Lena said quietly. I hope she gets to be happy. Something unreadable crossed Caleb's face. Me too. They made their way back to the ballroom separately. Caleb first, Lena following 2 minutes later. By the time she slipped back into the party, he was surrounded by well-wishers, playing the part of the happy groom-to-be with an ease that was probably terrifying. Lena found Nicole near the bar, already 3 drinks in and giggling with a guy in a suit that didn't quite fit. There you are. Nicole threw her arms around Lena. I've been looking everywhere. Did you find the coordinator? Yeah, Lena lied smoothly. All taken care of. You're the best. Come on, let's get you a drink. This party is amazing. Lena let herself be pulled toward the bar, very aware of the weight of Caleb's gaze from across the room. When she glanced back, he raised his champagne glass slightly, a small, private toast that no one else would notice. She didn't toast back, but she didn't look away either. The bartender slid her something pink and bubbling. Lena took a sip and tried not to think about the fact that she'd just agreed to the most insane arrangement of her life. 3 months, $75,000, a dying grandmother and a 5-year-old daughter and a man who'd kissed her like he was drowning and she was air. What could possibly go wrong? The answer, Lena would learn over the next few weeks, was absolutely everything. The car that picked Lena up the next morning was worth more than her entire apartment building. She stood on the curb outside her walk-up in Brooklyn, watching the black Mercedes idle at the corner, and felt her stomach twist into knots. The driver, a middle-aged man in a crisp uniform, had already gotten out and was standing by the rear door, waiting. Nicole peered through the apartment window above, her face pressed against the glass like a kid at Christmas. She'd been asking questions all morning, rapid-fire and relentless, about where Lena was going and who was picking her up and why she was being so secretive. "It's just a job interview," Lena had said, which was technically true if she didn't think too hard about what the job actually was. Now, as she walked toward the car, she felt the weight of the lie settling over her shoulders like a coat that didn't quite fit. The driver opened the door without a word. Lena slid into the back seat and found Caleb already there, scrolling through his phone with the kind of intense focus that suggested the fate of nations depended on whatever he was reading. He glanced up when she settled in, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or assessment. "You wore jeans." Lena looked down at her outfit. Dark jeans, a simple black sweater, boots that were clean but definitely showing their age. "You said we were going shopping. I didn't think I needed to dress up to try on clothes." "Fair point." He went back to his phone as the car pulled into traffic. "Did you read the contract?" "Twice." And I have questions." That got his attention. He pocketed the phone and turned to face her fully. In the morning light, Lena could see details she'd missed last night. The faint scar above his left eyebrow, the shadows under his eyes that suggested he didn't sleep much, the way his jaw tightened whenever he stopped performing. Ask. Section 7, subsection 3. Party B agrees to maintain appropriate social media presence as directed by Party A. What does that mean? It means you'll need to post occasionally, photos of us together, that kind of thing. Nothing excessive, just enough to look real. "I don't have Instagram." Caleb blinked. "You don't have Instagram? Or Twitter, or TikTok, or whatever else rich people use to broadcast their lives." For a moment, he just stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A real laugh, not the practiced sound she'd heard at the gala. "What?" "Nothing. It's just, you might be the first person under 40 I've met in 5 years who doesn't have social media. I have better things to do than stare at pictures of people pretending to be happy." His smile faded slightly. "Well, now you'll be one of those people. We'll set up accounts this week. Keep them private at first, then gradually start sharing." Lena pulled out the contract, 23 pages of dense legal text that her lawyer had helpfully highlighted and annotated. The lawyer herself had been thorough, professional, and clearly expensive. When Lena had asked how much she owed, the woman had just smiled and said it was already handled. Section 12. The termination clause. What about it? It says either party can terminate with 48 hours notice, but you retain the right to withhold payment if termination causes undue reputational damage. Who decides what's undue? Caleb's expression shifted to something more guarded. That's standard contract language. That's not an answer. You're really going to negotiate with me? You're really going to pay me $75,000 and expect me not to read the fine print? They stared at each other for a long moment. The car turned onto a street Lena didn't recognize, all brownstones and trees that probably cost more to maintain than her annual salary. "If you terminate because I'm abusive, controlling, or otherwise violating the terms, you get your full payment," Caleb said finally. "If you terminate because you changed your mind or found something better, the payment is prorated based on time served. If you terminate in a way that deliberately sabotages this arrangement, selling your story to the press, that kind of thing, you get nothing and I sue you for damages. What if you terminate? Same rules apply. If I end it early without cause, you get the full amount plus an additional $25,000 for your trouble." Lena studied his face, looking for the catch. "You'd really pay me $100,000 to walk away?" "I'd pay you $100,000 to walk away quietly. The moment this becomes a circus, we both lose. He leaned back against the leather seat. Look, I know this is complicated. I know you have every reason not to trust me, but I need this to work, which means I need you to feel secure enough to commit. So yes, if I screw this up, you get paid. Deal? She should have felt reassured. Instead, she just felt the weight of what she was agreeing to press down harder. Deal. The car pulled up in front of a building that didn't look like a store. No signs, no display windows, just an unmarked door with a small brass plaque that Lena couldn't read from the car. Where are we? Private showroom. They're expecting us. Caleb was already getting out, offering her his hand without thinking about it. Lena hesitated, then took it. His palm was warm, his grip firm, and the moment she stepped onto the sidewalk, she was hit with the realization that this was really happening. She was really doing this. The door opened before they reached it. A woman in her 50s, elegant and sharp-eyed, greeted them with a smile that managed to be welcoming and assessing at the same time. Mr. Vaughn, right on time. Margot, this is Lena. Lena, Margot runs the best private shopping service in Manhattan. Pleasure. Margot's gaze swept over Lena once, cataloging everything. Come in, please. We have everything ready. The interior was like something out of a movie. All soft lighting and plush furniture and racks of clothes that probably cost more than Lena's car. Except Lena didn't have a car, so maybe they just cost more than her entire existence. I've pulled a selection based on the specifications Mr. Vaughn provided, Margot said, gesturing to 3 separate areas, each with its own seating and mirrors and enough clothing to stock a small boutique. Day wear, evening wear, and casual. We'll start with day wear since you have the Ashford dinner tomorrow night. The what? Lena looked at Caleb. Family dinner. I told you about it. You absolutely did not tell me about it. Margot's eyebrows rose slightly, but she said nothing. Caleb had the grace to look sheepish. I'm telling you now. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, my grandmother's estate. It's just family. Define just family. My grandmother, my Aunt Patricia, my cousin Marcus and his wife, and Emma. He paused. And now you. Lena's stomach dropped. That's less than 48 hours from now. Which is why we're here. He gestured to Margot. She's a miracle worker. You're in good hands. Then, to Lena's horror, he started to leave. Wait, where are you going? I have meetings. I'll be back in 2 hours to pick you up. He was already at the door. Get whatever you need. Margot has my card. Caleb! But he was gone. The door closing with a soft click that felt like a trap snapping shut. Lena turned to find Margot watching her with an expression that might have been sympathy. First time? Is it that obvious? You look like a rabbit in headlights, dear. Come sit. Let's start with the easy part. The easy part, it turned out, was trying on approximately $3,000 worth of clothing while Margot made notes on a tablet and an assistant brought champagne that Lena was too nervous to drink. The key, Margot said, holding up a navy dress that looked deceptively simple, is to look wealthy without looking like you're trying. New money screams, old money whispers. What if you're no money? Margot's smile was genuine this time. Then you fake it until you learn the difference. Arms up. The dress slid over Lena's head like water, settling against her skin in a way that made her realize she'd never actually worn quality clothing before. Everything she owned had that slightly rough texture of cheap fabric. This felt like air. Better. Margot circled her, adjusting the fit with practiced hands. You have good proportions. That helps. Now tell me about tomorrow night. I don't know anything about tomorrow night except that I'm meeting his family, and I'm already terrified. The grandmother is Eleanor Vaughn. Formidable woman, built the family fortune from almost nothing after her husband died young. She'll test you. Test me how? Questions about your background, your intentions, your family. She'll want to know if you're worthy of her grandson. Margot met Lena's eyes in the mirror. Are you? No. The word came out before Lena could stop it. Probably not. Good answer. Honesty is rarer than you'd think in these circles. She gestured for Lena to turn. The aunt, Patricia, is the opposite. She'll smile and be gracious, and then eviscerate you the moment you leave the room. Don't try to win her over. You can't. This is getting better and better. And Marcus, the cousin, he's the dangerous one. He wants control of Vaughn Technologies, and Caleb is in his way. If he can prove Caleb is unstable, irresponsible, or otherwise unfit to lead, he might get it. Lena's blood went cold. Meaning I'm a liability. Meaning you're a test. If you're real, if this engagement is genuine, then Caleb is settled and stable. If you're fake, Margot left the sentence hanging. How do you know all this? I've dressed 3 generations of Vaughn women. You learn things. She pulled another dress from the rack, this one forest green. Try this one. The next hour passed in a blur of fabrics and cuts, and Margot's running commentary on what worked and what didn't and why. Lena learned that she looked good in jewel tones, bad in pastels, and that her shoulders were apparently her best feature. You carry tension here, Margot said, pressing lightly on Lena's upper back. Years of it, I'd guess. Decade of it. Well, now you can afford a massage therapist. She stepped back, assessing. That's the day wear sorted. Now evening. The evening gowns were another level entirely. Silk and velvet and fabrics Lena didn't even have names for, all cut to make her look like someone she absolutely was not. I can't wear this, Lena said, staring at her reflection in a black dress that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Why not? Because I'm a barista from Brooklyn who lives in an apartment where the heat doesn't work. I'm not, she gestured helplessly at the mirror. This. Margot was quiet for a moment. Then she said very gently, Who told you that you couldn't be more than one thing? Lena's throat tightened. You can be a barista from Brooklyn and also the woman who walks into a room and makes people look twice, Margot continued. Those aren't contradictions. They're just different parts of the same person. Easy for you to say. Is it? Margot's smile was sad. I started as a seamstress in a factory in Queens, worked my way up by learning to see what people needed before they knew themselves. That woman, she gestured at Lena's reflection, she needs to believe she belongs, so start practicing. By the time Caleb returned, Lena had been fitted for 14 outfits, 3 pairs of shoes, and enough accessories to stock a jewelry store. She felt exhausted, overwhelmed, and vaguely fraudulent. How'd it go? Caleb asked as they loaded garment bags into the car. Your credit card is probably crying. My credit card is fine. Did you get everything you need? I got everything Margot said I need. Whether that's the same thing, I have no idea. They settled into the car, and Lena watched Manhattan slide past the window. Somewhere in this city, Nicole was working the lunch shift at the diner. Lena's phone had 3 texts from her asking about the job interview and when Lena would be home. We need to talk about tomorrow, Caleb said. I already don't like the sound of this. My family is going to ask questions about how we met, how long we've been together, all of it. We need to have our story straight. Lena's stomach tightened. Okay. I'm thinking we met 6 months ago. Coffee shop where you work. I came in for a meeting that fell through. We started talking. Kept it quiet because of the press. That's vague enough to be believable? The key is details, small ones. What you were wearing the first time we talked, what I ordered, that kind of thing. Those make it real. They spent the rest of the drive building their fake history, trading details back and forth until Lena's head spun. She'd been wearing her gray sweater. He'd ordered a black coffee, no sugar. She'd recommended the lemon scone. He'd come back the next day. By the time the car pulled up to her building, they had a story that was almost believable. Almost. One more thing, Caleb said as Lena reached for the door handle. Emma, what about her? She's going to be at dinner tomorrow, and she's... He paused, choosing his words carefully. She doesn't like change. New people make her anxious, so if she's cold to you, if she doesn't want to talk, don't take it personally. Got it. I'm serious, Lena. She's been through a lot. I won't let anyone push her into something she's not ready for, even for this. It was the first time Lena had heard real emotion in his voice since the gala. Not the practice charm, not the business negotiation tone, but actual feeling. I won't push, she promised. If she wants space, she gets space. Something in Caleb's expression softened. Thank you. Lena climbed out of the car and watched it pull away, carrying her new wardrobe and her new identity with it. Tomorrow night, she'd walk into Eleanor Vaughn's home and become someone else entirely. She just hoped she could remember which person was real. The Ashford estate sat 40 minutes outside the city, surrounded by enough land that Lena couldn't see another building from the driveway. The house itself was old money incarnate, stone and ivy, and windows that reflected the setting sun like judgment. Caleb had picked her up at 6:30, giving them just enough time to run through their story one more time before they arrived. He'd barely spoken during the drive, his jaw tight with tension that made Lena wonder if he was regretting this entire arrangement. Now, as they stood at the front door, his hand found hers. Ready? Absolutely not. Good. Neither am I. He squeezed her fingers once. Just remember, you belong here as much as anyone else. The door opened before he could knock. A woman in her 60s stood there, not a housekeeper, but someone who clearly lived here, her silver hair pulled back and her smile warm but assessing. Caleb, darling. She pulled him into a hug that he returned with obvious affection. Then her eyes landed on Lena. And you must be the mysterious Lena. Aunt Patricia. Caleb's hand tightened on Lena's. This is Lena Brooks. Lena, my aunt. It's nice to meet you, Lena said, offering her hand. Patricia took it, her grip firm. We've been dying to meet the woman who finally captured my nephew's attention. Come in, come in. Mother is in the sitting room. The interior was exactly what Lena expected. Expensive, tasteful, and somehow cold despite the warmth of the lighting. Patricia led them through a hallway lined with family portraits, past a dining room that could seat 20, to a smaller room where Eleanor Vaughn sat in a wingback chair like a queen on a throne. She was smaller than Lena expected, thin in the way of people who'd been fighting illness, but her eyes were sharp and clear as they tracked Lena's approach. Grandmother, Caleb bent to kiss her cheek. You look well. I look old, but thank you for lying. Eleanor's attention shifted to Lena. So you're the one. Yes, ma'am. Lena's voice came out steady despite her racing heart. It's an honor to meet you. Is it? Eleanor's smile was slight. Sit, child. Let me look at you properly. Lena sat in the chair Patricia indicated, very aware of Caleb standing behind her like a guard. Eleanor studied her in silence for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone harder, more polished. Eleanor tilted her head. You're nervous. Yes, ma'am. Good. That means you care what I think. She leaned back slightly. Tell me, how did you meet my grandson? This was it, the first test of their lie. In the coffee shop where I work, Lena said, keeping her voice casual. He came in for a meeting that never happened. Looked frustrated, so I recommended the lemon scone. And that worked? He came back the next day. Lena glanced at Caleb. And the day after that. Eventually, I figured out it wasn't about the coffee. Smooth, Eleanor murmured. When was this? 6 months ago, October 15th. The detail was good, specific enough to be believable. Eleanor's expression didn't change, but Lena saw something flicker in her eyes. And you kept it quiet because... Because I'm a private person, Caleb interjected smoothly. And because the moment the press knew, our relationship stopped being ours. Eleanor's gaze hadn't left Lena. What do your parents think of all this? Lena's chest tightened. My mother is happy if I'm happy. My father passed when I was 12. I'm sorry to hear that. And Eleanor actually sounded like she meant it. What did he do? Construction. He fell from a scaffold. The words came automatically, smoothed by years of repetition. It was quick. Eleanor nodded slowly. Then, without warning, she changed directions. What are your intentions with my grandson? Grandmother, Caleb started, but Eleanor raised a hand. Let her answer. Lena met the old woman's gaze and made a choice. Not the safe answer, not the easy one, but something closer to truth. I intend to make him happy for as long as he'll let me. And if he won't let you? Then I'll leave with dignity and hope he remembers me kindly. Silence fell over the room. Patricia was watching from the doorway, her expression unreadable. Caleb's hand had found Lena's shoulder, a gesture of support that she hadn't expected. Eleanor's smile was slow and somehow sad. You'll do. Before Lena could process that, a door opened across the room and a man walked in, mid-30s, handsome in a calculated way with Caleb's jawline and none of his warmth. Marcus, Caleb said, and his hand tightened on Lena's shoulder. Baby brother. Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Heard you brought your fiancée. Wanted to meet the woman brave enough to take you on. Lena, my cousin Marcus. Marcus, Lena Brooks. Marcus crossed the room and took Lena's hand, holding it just a moment too long. Charmed. I have to say, Caleb, she's not your usual type. Meaning? Meaning she seems genuine. Marcus released her hand. The others were also obviously after your money. This one actually looks like she might care. The insult was wrapped in a compliment so neatly that Lena almost missed it. Almost. The others, she said carefully, aren't here. I am. Marcus's smile sharpened. Indeed you are. Lucky timing, really. Grandmother's been asking about Caleb settling down for years, and suddenly here you are, just when he needs to look stable and responsible. Marcus? Eleanor's voice cut like a knife. That's enough. I'm just saying what we're all thinking. He moved to pour himself a drink. But congratulations anyway. I'm sure it'll be a lovely wedding. Caleb looked like he wanted to hit something. Lena stood, needing to move, to do anything other than sit there while Marcus dissected their arrangement. Where's the bathroom? Down the hall, second door on the left, Patricia said. Lena escaped, grateful for the reprieve. The hallway was cooler, quieter, and she leaned against the wall for a moment just to breathe. She'd made it through Eleanor, that was something. But Marcus was going to be a problem. You must be Lena. The voice was small, uncertain. Lena looked down and found a little girl standing in the hallway, dark hair pulled into pigtails, wearing a dress that was clearly expensive but somehow still looked rumpled. You must be Emma. The girl nodded, studying Lena with the same intensity her father had. You're pretty. Thank you. So are you. Daddy says you're going to be my new mom. Lena's heart stopped. Did he? He said you're going to marry him and live with us, and that I should be nice to you. Emma's face scrunched up. But I don't want a new mom. That's okay. Lena crouched down to Emma's level. You don't have to want one. Really? Really? You already had a mom. Nobody can replace her. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Everyone says I should be excited, that I should be happy, but I'm not. You don't have to be. Daddy will be sad if I'm not nice to you. Lena's throat ached. Your daddy loves you more than anything in the world. He'll understand. They stared at each other, this motherless child and the woman pretending to fill that role, and Lena felt the full weight of what she was doing crash down on her. Can I tell you a secret? Emma whispered. Sure. I heard Grandma talking. She said Daddy needed to find someone before she... Emma's voice caught. Before she goes away forever. Your grandmother is sick. I know. Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. Everyone keeps saying she's fine, but I heard the doctors. She's going to die. Lena pulled Emma into a hug before she could think better of it, and the little girl collapsed against her, crying in the way kids do when they've been holding it in too long. It's not fair, Emma sobbed into Lena's shoulder. No, Lena agreed quietly. It's really not. They stayed like that until Emma's tears slowed, until footsteps approached and Caleb appeared in the hallway, his expression shifting from worry to something else when he saw them. Everything okay? Emma pulled back, swiping at her eyes. I'm fine, Daddy. But she didn't let go of Lena's hand. Dinner was exactly as uncomfortable as Lena expected. She sat between Caleb and Patricia across from Marcus and his wife, a brittle woman named Diane who smiled like she was in pain. Emma sat next to Eleanor, picking at her food and shooting Lena occasional glances that might have been curiosity or resentment or both. The conversation was carefully polite, dancing around anything meaningful. Marcus asked pointed questions about Lena's background that Caleb deflected. Patricia praised the meal while somehow making it sound like criticism. Eleanor watched everything with those sharp eyes, missing nothing. So Lena, Diane said suddenly, her voice carrying across the table. Caleb mentioned you work in a coffee shop. I do. How charming. Will you continue after the wedding? I haven't decided. Because it would be such a conflict of interest, wouldn't it? The future Mrs. Vaughn slinging lattes. Diane's smile was poisonous. People might think you married for money. Diane, Marcus said, but he didn't sound particularly concerned. I'm just asking questions. Diane turned back to Lena. You must have thought about it. The prenup alone will take months to negotiate. Lena felt Caleb tense beside her. This was a trap, a test, and everyone at the table was waiting to see how she'd handle it. Actually, Lena said calmly, I think people who marry for money end up earning every penny. If I wanted to be miserable for cash, I'd pick a job with better hours. Patricia choked on her wine. Marcus's eyebrows rose. Even Eleanor's lips twitched. Diane flushed red. I didn't mean to imply— Of course you did. Lena met her eyes steadily. But thank you for your concern. The rest of dinner passed in tense silence, broken only by Eleanor's occasional dry comments and Emma's quiet requests for more water, more bread, more anything to avoid eating. Lena noticed the way Caleb watched his daughter, the worry creasing the corners of his eyes, and realized this man who commanded boardrooms was utterly helpless in the face of his child's grief. When dessert finally arrived, some complicated thing involving chocolate and gold leaf, Emma pushed back from the table. May I be excused? Of course, sweetheart, Eleanor said. But instead of leaving, Emma walked around the table to Lena. Can you come with me? I want to show you something. Every adult at the table went still. Caleb looked like someone had punched him. If that's okay with your dad, Lena said carefully. It's fine. Caleb's voice was rough. Go ahead. Emma took Lena's hand and led her from the dining room, up a massive staircase, down another hallway to a bedroom that was obviously hers, toys scattered across the floor, drawings taped to the walls, a canopy bed that any 5-year-old would kill for. This is my room, Emma said unnecessarily. It's beautiful. Emma walked to her dresser and picked up a small wooden box. She opened it carefully, reverently, and pulled out a photograph. This is my mom. The woman in the picture was stunning, dark hair, bright eyes, laughing at whoever was behind the camera. She looked young, alive, nothing like the ghost Emma carried. She's beautiful, Lena said softly. You look like her. Everyone says that. Emma traced the photo with one finger. I don't remember her, not really. Just little things, the way she smelled, how she sang me songs. That's still something. Daddy keeps telling me stories about her, but they're his memories, not mine. Emma looked up at Lena. Do you think that's sad? I think it's human. Emma set the photo down carefully. Are you going to try to be like her? No? Good. She closed the box. Because nobody could be. They stood in silence for a moment, this child and this stranger, both playing roles they didn't choose. Can I tell you something? Lena asked. Emma nodded. I'm really scared. Of what? Of letting your dad down. Of not being good enough. Of you hating me. Lena sat on the edge of Emma's bed. And I don't want to replace your mom. I could never do that. But maybe, if you want, we could just try being friends? Emma considered this seriously. What if I don't want that either? Then we'll figure something else out. Promise? Promise. Emma climbed onto the bed beside Lena and sat there, swinging her legs. Marcus doesn't like you. I noticed. He doesn't like Daddy either. Says Daddy stole the company from him. Did he? I don't know. Grown-ups are complicated. Emma looked at Lena sideways. Do you really love my dad? The question hit like a hammer. Lena opened her mouth, closed it, tried to figure out how to lie to a 5-year-old about something this important. I care about him, she said finally. And I'm trying to make him happy. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Emma nodded like this confirmed something she already knew. Grandma says marriage should be about love, but she also says sometimes you learn to love people after you promise to. Your grandma sounds wise. She is. Emma's voice went quiet. I don't want her to die. I know, sweetheart. I know. They sat together until Caleb appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Everything okay up here? We're talking, Emma said. Lena is nice, Daddy. I'm glad. He moved into the room, and Lena saw the exhaustion in every line of his body. But it's getting late. We should probably head out. The goodbyes were mercifully brief. Eleanor pulled Lena aside before they left, her grip surprisingly strong. You're good for him, she said quietly. Whatever your reasons for being here, you're good for him. Lena didn't trust herself to answer. The drive back to the city was silent. Caleb stared out the window, lost in thoughts he didn't share, while Lena replayed the evening in her head. Marcus's implications, Diane's hostility, Emma's photograph. "Thank you," Caleb said finally as they pulled up to Lena's building. "For what?" "For being kind to Emma. You didn't have to do that." "She's a kid who lost her mom." "Of course I had to." He turned to look at her fully. Most people wouldn't have. They'd smile and play nice in front of witnesses. But the moment they were alone, they'd ignore her or treat her like an inconvenience. "Then you've been around terrible people." "I have." He paused. "She liked you. Emma, I mean. That's rare." "She's testing me, trying to figure out if I'm safe." "Are you?" The question hung between them. Lena thought about the contract in her apartment, the money that would hit her account in installments, the fact that she was lying to everyone, including that little girl upstairs. "I don't know," she admitted. "I hope so." Caleb nodded slowly. "Me too." Lena climbed out of the car and watched it pull away and felt the full weight of what she'd started settle over her shoulders. This wasn't just about playing dress-up anymore. This wasn't just about fooling rich people at parties. This was about a sick grandmother who wanted to see her grandson happy. This was about a little girl who'd already lost too much. This was about a man who was drowning in responsibility and desperately trying to hold it all together. And Lena was lying to all of them. She made it up to her apartment and collapsed on the couch, still wearing the dress Margot had chosen, still smelling like Eleanor's expensive perfume. Nicole was out, probably at the diner, and the apartment was dark and quiet. Lena pulled out her phone and stared at the contract one more time. $75,000. 3 months. One massive, complicated, potentially devastating lie. She should back out. She should call Caleb right now and tell him this was too much, that she couldn't do it, that he needed to find someone else. Instead, she opened her banking app and stared at the first payment that had appeared that morning. $25,000. More money than she'd ever had in her life, sitting there like proof that this was real. Her phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. "Grandmother wants to have lunch next week. Just you and her. Can you make it?" Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could say no. She could end this now, while it was still relatively simple, before anyone got hurt worse than they already were. "What day?" she typed instead. The reply came instantly. "Thursday. I'll have the car pick you up at 11. "Okay." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "You did well tonight. Better than I had any right to expect." Lena stared at the message, trying to figure out what she was supposed to feel. Pride? Guilt? Some horrible combination of both? "See you Thursday," she sent back, then put the phone down before she could second-guess herself. Outside her window, Brooklyn hummed with nighttime traffic and sirens, and all the sounds of a city that didn't care about one woman's ethical crisis. Somewhere across the river, Caleb was probably putting Emma to bed, reading her stories about her mother, trying to fill a hole that could never be filled. And Lena sat in her tiny apartment wearing a dress that cost 3 months of her rent and wondered how long she could keep lying before the whole thing collapsed. 3 months, she reminded herself. Just 3 months. She just hoped everyone would survive them. Thursday arrived too fast. Lena stood in front of her bathroom mirror, trying on the 4th outfit in 20 minutes and hating all of them equally. The lunch with Eleanor wasn't supposed to be formal. Caleb had said as much when he'd texted her the details. But somehow that made it worse. Formal she could handle. Formal had rules. Casual lunch with a dying woman who could see through lies like glass was its own kind of terror. She settled on dark jeans and a cream sweater that Margot had insisted was effortlessly elegant, which Lena was pretty sure was code for costs more than your security deposit. Her phone buzzed. The car was downstairs. Nicole was in the kitchen, eating cereal and scrolling through her phone. She looked up when Lena grabbed her bag. "Another mysterious outing with your new boyfriend?" "It's not mysterious. I told you we're just keeping it quiet." "For 6 months?" Nicole's eyebrows rose. "That's not quiet, that's classified. When do I get to meet this guy?" "Soon," Lena lied, and hated how easy it was getting. "I promise." The lie sat heavy in her stomach during the entire drive to Eleanor's townhouse. A different property than the estate. Smaller, but no less intimidating. The driver opened her door without a word, and Lena found herself standing on a tree-lined street in the Upper East Side, staring at a building that probably cost more than her entire neighborhood. Eleanor answered the door herself, which surprised Lena more than it should have. "No staff today," the old woman said, reading Lena's expression. "I wanted us to talk without an audience. Come in." The interior was warmer than the estate, more lived in. Books lined the walls, photographs covered every surface, and the furniture looked comfortable rather than just expensive. Eleanor led her to a sunroom overlooking a small garden where lunch was already set out: sandwiches, fruit, tea, and delicate china cups. "Sit, please. I promise not to interrogate you too harshly." Lena sat, and Eleanor poured tea with hands that trembled slightly. The tremor was new, or at least more visible than it had been at dinner. Lena watched the old woman struggle with the teapot and felt something twist in her chest. "Let me help." "I can manage." But Eleanor's smile was grateful when Lena took the pot anyway. "Thank you." They ate in silence for a few minutes, and Lena realized Eleanor was studying her the same way she'd done at dinner, assessing, calculating, trying to solve an equation that didn't quite add up. "You're wondering why I asked you here," Eleanor said finally. "A little. I wanted to understand you, away from Caleb, away from the family politics. Just you." She set down her teacup. "Tell me about your father." The question caught Lena off guard. "My father? You said he died when you were 12. That shapes a person." Lena's throat tightened. Nobody asked about her father. People offered condolences and moved on, uncomfortable with grief that was old but never quite finished. "He was a good man," she said carefully. "Worked hard, loved my mom, tried to give me a better life than he had." "And did he?" "I don't know. I'm still figuring out what that means." Eleanor nodded slowly. "My husband died when Caleb's father was 10. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. One day he was here, the next he wasn't. People told me I was lucky, that at least he didn't suffer." Her laugh was bitter, as if watching your children grow up without a father isn't its own kind of suffering. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm not looking for sympathy." Eleanor's gaze sharpened. "I'm looking for understanding. You know what it's like to lose someone who was supposed to be there, to have that absence shape everything that comes after." Lena felt exposed, like Eleanor had peeled back her skin and was examining what she found underneath. "Caleb lost his wife," Eleanor continued. "Emma lost her mother, and now here you are, stepping into a space that's still bleeding, that takes either tremendous courage or tremendous foolishness. Maybe both." "Maybe." Eleanor picked at her sandwich without eating it. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I knew the engagement was staged. The moment Caleb announced it, I knew." Lena's blood went cold. "What?" "Oh, not the specifics. Not that he'd hired an actress or that you were a substitute." Eleanor's smile was sad. "But I know my grandson. I know when he's performing. And that night, in that ballroom, he was giving the performance of his life." Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The contract, the money, the entire fragile lie, it was all collapsing. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to see what would happen." Eleanor leaned forward. "Caleb has spent 3 years building walls. After Sarah died, he threw himself into work, into being a father, into anything that meant he didn't have to feel. He became efficient, mechanical, safe, and I watched him disappear into it." "So you let him lie to you?" "I let him try." Eleanor's eyes were sharp despite the tremor in her hands. "But something interesting happened. The lie started changing. At dinner last week, when you talked to Emma, when you stood up to Diane, that wasn't acting. That was real. You don't know that." "Don't I?" Eleanor tilted her head. "I've been watching people lie to me for 83 years, child. I know the difference between performance and truth." Lena set down her teacup before she could drop it. "If you know it's fake, why are you playing along?" "Because fake or not, you're the first person in 3 years who's made Caleb look like he might remember how to be human." Eleanor's voice softened. "And because I'm dying, and I'm selfish, and I want to believe my grandson might find his way back to himself before I go." The words hung in the air between them, brutal and honest, and somehow worse than any accusation. "I should tell him you know," Lena said quietly. "You could. But then what? He panics, ends the arrangement, builds his walls higher, and we're all back where we started." Eleanor reached across the table and took Lena's hand. Her grip was weak but steady. "Or you could keep going, Keep being whatever it is you are to him, real or fake, or something in between. Keep making him remember that there's more to life than quarterly earnings and board meetings. That's not fair to him. Or to you. Fair? Eleanor laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm dying of heart failure at 83. My grandson is raising a traumatized child alone while running a company his cousin wants to steal. My family is full of vipers who smile while they sharpen their knives. Fair left this building a long time ago. Lena pulled her hand back, needing space to think. What do you want from me? I want you to stay. I want you to keep pretending until it's not pretending anymore. And if that makes me manipulative, so be it. Eleanor's expression was fierce. I've spent my entire life building something that matters. I won't die watching it crumble because my grandson forgot how to feel. And if I can't do it, if I fail, then you fail. But at least you tried. They sat in silence while Lena tried to process what had just happened. Eleanor knew, had known from the beginning, and instead of exposing them, she was actively encouraging the lie. Does anyone else know? Lena asked finally. Marcus suspects. He's not stupid, and he's desperate to find weakness. Eleanor's mouth thinned. But suspicion isn't proof. As long as you and Caleb maintain the facade, he can't move against you. This is insane. Most worthwhile things are. Eleanor stood, steadier than Lena expected. Come. I want to show you something. She led Lena upstairs to a room that had clearly been an office once, but was now half-packed, boxes stacked against the walls, photographs sorted into piles. Eleanor picked up a frame from the desk, a picture of a young man who looked enough like Caleb to be his twin. My son. Caleb's father. He died 15 years ago. Stroke. Massive. Took him in his sleep. She traced the glass with one finger. He was brilliant, driven, completely incapable of asking for help. Worked himself to death at 52 because he thought that's what success looked like. I'm sorry. Caleb is exactly like him. Same drive, same intelligence, same inability to admit when he's drowning. Eleanor set the photo down. When Sarah died, I watched him start down the same path. And I can't lose another person I love to this family's toxic relationship with ambition. So you're using me to save him. I'm giving you an opportunity to save him. Whether you take it is up to you. Eleanor met Lena's eyes. But know this. If you walk away now, you'll be walking away from $75,000 and a man who desperately needs someone to remind him he's allowed to be human. If you stay, you might actually change something. Lena thought about Caleb in the car, exhausted, intense. Emma crying in the hallway about her dying grandmother. The weight of all these people carrying grief they couldn't share. I don't know if I'm the right person for this. Neither do I, Eleanor said bluntly. But you're the person who's here. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? The lunch ended shortly after, with Eleanor insisting Lena take leftover sandwiches and a promise to attend a charity gala the following week. Lena walked out of that townhouse feeling like she'd been turned inside out and examined under a microscope. The car took her back to Brooklyn, and she spent the ride staring out the window, trying to figure out what she'd just agreed to. Eleanor knew. Eleanor knew and didn't care. Eleanor knew and wanted Lena to keep lying. Her phone buzzed. Caleb, how did it go? Lena stared at the message. She should tell him. Should explain that his grandmother had seen through everything and was actively manipulating them both toward some outcome only she understood. Fine. She's formidable. That's one word for it. She likes you, though. How can you tell? You're still alive. Despite everything, Lena smiled. Then another message came through. Can you come by the office tomorrow? There's something I need to discuss. Nothing bad, I promise. What time? 2? I'll text you the address. Okay. She pocketed her phone and leaned back against the leather seat, watching Brooklyn slide past. Somewhere in this massive lie, something had shifted. She just wasn't sure if it was shifting toward truth or toward disaster. Vaughn Technologies occupied 3 floors of a building in Midtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of aggressive modernity that was supposed to signal innovation. Lena stood in the lobby the next day, feeling distinctly out of place among the employees in their sharp suits and focused expressions. The receptionist, young, polished, wearing a smile that was definitely practiced, looked up when Lena approached. Can I help you? I'm here to see Caleb Vaughn, Lena Brooks. The smile went from professional to genuinely warm. Oh, yes, Mr. Vaughn mentioned you'd be coming. Let me call his assistant. 2 minutes later, Lena was being escorted to the elevator by a woman in her 40s who introduced herself as Janet and chattered enthusiastically about how nice it was that Caleb was finally settling down and how Emma talked about Lena constantly and how the whole office was buzzing about the engagement. We were starting to worry, Janet confided as they rode up to the executive floor. After Sarah, he just shut down. Work, Emma. Nothing else. It's good to see him opening up again. Lena made non-committal sounds and tried not to feel like garbage. The executive floor was quieter than the lobby, all muted colors and expensive art. Janet led her to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, knocked once, and opened the door. Ms. Brooks for you, Mr. Vaughn. Caleb looked up from his computer and something in his expression softened when he saw Lena. Thank you, Janet. Hold my calls for the next hour? Of course. Janet winked at Lena on her way out. Actual winked. The door closed, and suddenly Lena was alone with Caleb in a space that was so completely his it felt intimate. The office was immaculate but lived in, coffee cups on the desk, a child's drawing pinned to the wall, books stacked in careful piles. Sorry about Janet, Caleb said, standing. She's been my assistant for 6 years and has decided my personal life is her special project. She seems nice. She's terrifying. He gestured to the seating area by the windows. Come sit. Want anything? Water? Coffee? I'm fine. They settled on opposite ends of a couch that probably cost more than Lena's car would if she had one. Caleb looked different here, sharper, more in his element, but also more tired. Like the office was both armor and prison. How was lunch with my grandmother? Lena chose her words carefully. Educational? That's ominous. She wanted to understand me. Asked about my father, my background. It felt like a test. With Eleanor, everything is a test. Caleb rubbed his face. Did you pass? I think so. She didn't throw me out anyway. He laughed, and Lena realized she liked the sound. It was rare enough to feel genuine. So why did you want me here? She asked. Caleb's expression shifted, became more businesslike. The charity gala next Friday. It's a big one. 500 people, press everywhere, basically the social event of the season. We need to be convincing. More convincing than we've been? Different kind of convincing. At family dinners, we can be reserved, still figuring things out. At this gala, we need to look settled. In love. He said the last part carefully, like he was testing the weight of the words. Which means we need to practice. Practice being in love? Practice looking like we're in love. The photos from this event will be everywhere. If we seem awkward or staged, people will notice. Lena's stomach tightened. What kind of practice? Nothing weird, just, He stood and offered his hand. Dance with me. Here? Here. When she hesitated, he added, Please, I need to know we can do this without it looking completely fake. Lena took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. He positioned them carefully, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers, a respectable distance between their bodies. Then he pulled out his phone with his free hand and started music. Something slow, classical, the kind of thing rich people probably dance to at galas. I don't really know how to dance, Lena admitted. Just follow my lead and try not to look terrified. I'm not terrified. You're gripping my shoulder like I'm a life raft and you're drowning. Lena forced herself to relax, and they started moving. Caleb was a good dancer, smooth, confident, the kind of skill that came from years of practice at events exactly like the one they'd be attending. Lena stumbled twice in the first minute. Sorry. It's fine, just focus on me. She did, and that was somehow worse. This close, she could see the gray in his eyes wasn't uniform. There were darker rings near the pupils, lighter flecks near the edges. She could smell his cologne, feel the warmth of his hand through her sweater, notice the way his jaw tightened when he concentrated. You're staring, he said quietly. You told me to focus on you. I meant my movements, not my face. Your face is attached to your movements. The corner of his mouth twitched. They turned and Lena managed not to step on his feet. Progress. At the gala, Caleb said, there will be moments when we need to be close. Photos, small talk with donors, that kind of thing. People will be watching. So we smile and play the part. It's more than that. We need to be comfortable touching each other. Right now, you're holding yourself like you're afraid I'll break. I'm afraid I'll break, or step on you, or trip and take us both down. He stopped moving. Lena. She looked up at him. This only works if you trust me. At least a little. At least enough to fake it. His hand tightened slightly at her waist. Do you trust me? It was a loaded question with about 17 different answers, none of them simple. Lena thought about Eleanor saying the lie was becoming real. She thought about Emma's photograph and Marcus's calculating smile and all the ways this could go wrong. I'm trying to, she said honestly. Something shifted in Caleb's expression. That's enough. They started dancing again, and this time Lena let herself lean into it. Let herself notice the way Caleb moved, the strength in his frame, the way he guided her without forcing. The music swelled, and for a few minutes they were just two people dancing in an empty office, pretending to be something they weren't. When the song ended, neither of them stepped back immediately. Better, Caleb said quietly. Thanks. I mean it. At the gala, if we can do this, he gestured between them. We'll be fine. What if we can't? Then we'll improvise. He finally released her, and Lena felt the absence of his touch like cold air. There's something else. Of course there is. He walked to his desk and pulled out a small velvet box. Lena's heart stopped. It's not what you think, he said quickly, reading her expression. Well, it is, but not just open it. Lena took the box and opened it carefully. Inside was a ring, diamond, tasteful, absolutely stunning. The kind of ring that made a statement without screaming. We need to make this official, Caleb said. People are already asking why you're not wearing one. My grandmother mentioned it at lunch, apparently. She did, Lena confirmed, remembering Eleanor's pointed glance at her bare hand. So, he took the ring from the box and held it up. May I? Lena extended her left hand, and Caleb slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, which made sense. He'd probably had someone measure her other jewelry. The diamond caught the light and threw rainbows across the ceiling. It's beautiful, Lena whispered. It should be. It cost enough. But his voice was gentle. You don't have to wear it all the time, just when we're in public. Okay. They stood there, Lena staring at the ring and Caleb watching her stare at it, and the weight of what they were doing pressed down on them both. I should tell you something, Caleb said abruptly. What? Marcus is digging. He's hired someone to investigate you, background check, financial records, all of it. Lena's stomach dropped. Can he do that? He can try. But there's nothing for him to find, right? Your story is clean. My story is my life. There's nothing to hide. Except the fact that this entire engagement was bought and paid for, but those contracts were locked in a lawyer's safe and protected by enough NDAs to choke a horse. Good. Caleb shoved his hands in his pockets. Just be aware. If he approaches you, if he asks questions, don't engage. Tell him to talk to me. He's really that desperate to take you down? He's that desperate for control. The company, the family legacy, all of it. He thinks it should have been his. Caleb moved to the window, staring out at the city. My father chose me as his successor. Marcus has never forgiven either of us for that. Even though your father's been gone 15 years, especially because of that. In Marcus's mind, he's been waiting patiently for his turn. And now here I am, getting engaged, looking stable, making it harder for him to argue I'm unfit to lead. Lena joined him at the window. What happens if he succeeds? If he gets control? He'll run it into the ground within 5 years. He's smart but impulsive, cares more about ego than strategy. Caleb's jaw tightened. And he'll destroy everything my father and grandmother built in the process. So the stakes are kind of high. You could say that. They stood in silence, watching the city move below them. Lena twisted the ring on her finger, getting used to the weight. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why me? I mean, really, you could have hired any actress, paid them to stay bought, kept everything simple. Why did you pull a random woman in a borrowed dress into this mess? Caleb was quiet for so long Lena thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, because you were real. What? In that hallway when I grabbed you, you could have screamed, could have run, could have made a scene, but you didn't. You went along with it because he trailed off. I don't know why. But in that moment, you were the most real thing in that entire ballroom. I was terrified. I know, but you did it anyway. He turned to face her. Everyone else in my life is playing an angle. My family, my board, even my friends, they all want something. But you just wanted to help Nicole return some gift bags. There was no agenda, no calculation, just a person being a person. Lena's throat ached. That's a lot of weight to put on someone you don't know. I know, I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. I'm Canadian. We can't help it. That startled a laugh out of her. You're not Canadian. No, but my mother was. The apology thing stuck. His smile faded. Look, I know this is complicated. I know I'm asking you to lie for money, which makes me pretty much the worst person you could have run into that night. But I meant what I said. You can walk away anytime. The contract protects you as much as it protects me. Your grandmother doesn't want me to walk away. Caleb's eyebrows rose. What did she say to you? That she knew the engagement was staged, that she doesn't care, that she wants me to keep going anyway because apparently I'm good for you. For a moment, Caleb looked like he'd been hit. Then he laughed, a harsh, surprised sound. Of course she knew. Of course she did. You're not upset. He ran both hands through his hair. I don't know what I am. Relieved, maybe. At least I don't have to keep lying to her. She still wants us to keep lying to everyone else. Naturally. He looked at Lena. Does that change anything for you? Did it? Lena thought about Eleanor's fierce expression, her trembling hands, her desperate desire to see her grandson find something real before she died. No, she said finally. It doesn't change anything. Okay? Caleb nodded slowly. Okay. Then we keep going. We keep going, Lena agreed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Where are you? We need milk and you're closer to the store. Reality, crashing back in. Lena was standing in a billionaire's office wearing a ring worth more than her yearly salary, pretending to be someone she absolutely was not. I should go, she said. Right. Of course. Caleb walked her to the door, then paused. The gala is Friday at 7. I'll pick you up at 6:30. Margot will send over dress options tomorrow. How many options? Knowing Margot? Probably 15. That's excessive. That's Margot. He opened the door, and they stepped into the hallway. Janet looked up from her desk, saw them, and beamed. Such a lovely couple, she said to no one in particular. In the elevator, Lena stared at the ring on her finger and tried to remember which version of herself was real anymore. The week that followed was a blur of preparation. Margot sent dresses, 17, not 15, and Lena spent an entire afternoon trying them on, while Nicole watched and asked increasingly pointed questions about this mysterious boyfriend who bought her designer gowns. He's rich, clearly, like rich. So why are you still living here? Because we're taking things slow. You've been dating for 6 months and you're engaged. That's not slow, that's a sprint. Lena had no good answer for that. She chose a dress, midnight blue, elegant without being showy, and tried not to think about how much it cost. The gala loomed larger each day, until finally it was Friday and Caleb's car was pulling up to her building at exactly 6:30. He stepped out wearing a tuxedo that made him look like he'd been born for this, and for a moment Lena forgot how to breathe. You look beautiful, he said when she joined him. You clean up okay yourself. The drive to the venue, some museum Lena had never been able to afford to visit, felt too short. Caleb ran through the guest list, pointing out who she needed to charm and who she needed to avoid. Marcus would be there. Diane, Patricia. Half of Manhattan's elite and all of their judgment. Ready? Caleb asked as they pulled up to a red carpet, an actual red carpet, surrounded by photographers and cameras. No. Perfect. Let's go. He helped her out of the car, and immediately the cameras started flashing. Lena's hand found Caleb's automatically, gripping tight, and he squeezed back once before leading her forward. They walked the carpet like they'd been doing it their whole lives. Caleb's hand never left the small of her back. He introduced her to people whose names Lena immediately forgot, smiled for photos, gave sound bites to reporters about how happy they were. And Lena played her part. She smiled. She laughed at the right moments. She let Caleb pull her close for photos. She became the woman everyone expected to see, polished, gracious, completely in love. Inside, The museum had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Lights everywhere, music swelling from a live orchestra, people in gowns and tuxedos that probably cost more than Lena's entire neighborhood. "Remember," Caleb murmured in her ear, "we belong here." Liar. Fake it anyway. They worked the room together, and Lena watched Caleb operate. This was his world. The handshakes, the small talk, the careful navigation of social politics. He was good at it, but she could see the exhaustion in the set of his shoulders, the way his smile never quite reached his eyes. "Mr. Vaughn!" They turned to find a reporter approaching, microphone in hand and camera crew following. "Quick question for the happy couple?" the reporter asked, already shoving the microphone toward them. "Of course," Caleb said smoothly. The engagement came as a surprise to many. "Can you tell us how you proposed?" Caleb's hand tightened on Lena's waist. This wasn't in the script. They'd prepared for questions about how they met, how long they'd been together, but not this. "It was actually quite simple," Lena heard herself say. "We were at home, just the two of us. Emma was asleep upstairs. Caleb had just finished a long day at work, and we were sitting on the couch, talking about nothing important. And he just asked." She looked up at Caleb and found him staring at her with something unreadable in his expression. "No grand gesture," the reporter pressed. "The grand gestures come later," Caleb said, his voice rough. "That moment was just for us." The reporter seemed satisfied with that and moved on. But Caleb didn't let go of Lena's waist, and she didn't step away. "That was good," he said quietly. "It felt real." "Yeah." His thumb moved against her back, a small, unconscious gesture. It did. They danced later, surrounded by hundreds of people, but somehow feeling alone. Caleb held her closer than he had in his office, and Lena let herself sink into it. The music, the movement, the careful lie they were both living. "Everyone's watching us," she murmured. "Let them." "Caleb, just follow my lead." So she did. And for those few minutes, with his arms around her and the music swelling and cameras flashing from every corner, Lena let herself believe the lie. Let herself imagine this was real, that she was really engaged to this man, that she really belonged in this glittering world. The illusion shattered when Marcus appeared at Caleb's elbow. "Mind if I cut in?" "Actually, yes," Caleb said. "Oh, come on, just one dance with my future cousin, unless you don't trust me." It was a trap, obviously. Refusing would look possessive, controlling. Agreeing meant letting Marcus get Lena alone. "It's fine," Lena said, making the choice for him. One dance. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he stepped back. Marcus took his place, and suddenly Lena was being led across the floor by a man who looked at her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "You're very good at this," Marcus said conversationally. "At dancing?" "At playing the part. The loving fiancée, the devoted mother figure. It's quite convincing." "That's because it's not playing, isn't it?" His smile was sharp. "Come now, Lena. We're both adults. You appeared out of nowhere at exactly the moment Caleb needed to look settled. You have no social media presence, no digital footprint before 6 months ago. You work in a coffee shop but somehow fit seamlessly into high society. Some people are adaptable, and some people are paid to be." He spun her, and Lena had to fight to keep her balance. "I've been looking into you, your background, your finances. Everything checks out on paper, which is interesting because these days, nothing checks out that cleanly unless someone made sure it would." "I don't know what you're implying. Don't you?" He leaned closer. "I think you're a plant. A perfectly crafted fabrication designed to make my cousin look stable enough to run a company. And I think eventually you're going to slip. And when you do, I'll be there to catch every glorious second of it." The song ended. Marcus released her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, Lena. I know I will." He disappeared into the crowd, and Lena stood frozen until Caleb appeared, his expression stormy. "What did he say?" "He knows, or at least he suspects." Lena's hands were shaking. "He's investigating me. He said my background is too clean. He's fishing. He doesn't have anything real." "Not yet." Caleb pulled her away from the dance floor toward a quieter corner. "Look at me." Lena did. Marcus can suspect all he wants. Without proof, he's just another jealous cousin making noise. And the longer we maintain this, the harder it becomes for him to claim it's fake. His hands found her shoulders. But if you want out, if this is too much, tell me now. Lena thought about walking away, about going back to her tiny apartment and her coffee shop job and her life where the stakes were low and the lies were simpler. Then she thought about Eleanor's trembling hands, Emma's tears, Caleb's exhausted smile. I'm not walking away, she said, but we need to be more careful, no more slip-ups. Agreed. They stayed at the gala another 2 hours, smiling and dancing and pretending everything was fine. But when Caleb finally took Lena home, they sat in the car outside her building in heavy silence. Thank you, he said finally, for handling Marcus, for not running. I made a deal. I keep my deals. It's more than that. He looked at her. You could have cracked when he confronted you. Most people would have, but you held firm. Yeah, well, I've had practice dealing with people who think I don't belong places. Caleb's expression softened. Lena, I should go. Nicole's probably waiting up. She moved to open the door, but Caleb's hand caught hers. Wait. She turned back and found him closer than she expected, close enough to see the exhaustion in his face, the weight he carried, the cracks in his armor. I'm glad it was you, he said quietly. That night, in the hallway, I'm glad it was you and not some actress I'd never have to think about again. Lena's breath caught. Caleb, but he was already pulling back, putting distance between them again. See you Monday. Eleanor wants us for dinner. Of course she does. Lena climbed out of the car and watched it pull away, the ring heavy on her finger and her heart hammering against her ribs. Behind her, Nicole was definitely waiting up, armed with questions Lena couldn't answer. Above her, the sky was starting to lighten toward dawn. And somewhere in Manhattan, Marcus was probably already planning his next move. 3 months suddenly felt like a very long time. The explosion came 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning when Lena was halfway through her shift at the coffee shop. Her phone lit up with notifications so fast it actually made a sound, buzz after buzz after buzz until the screen was just a blur of alerts. Then Nicole called, then Margot, then a number Lena didn't recognize. She ignored them all until her manager, Sam, came out from the back room with his own phone in hand, staring at her like she'd grown a second head. You want to explain why there's a photo of you kissing a billionaire on every gossip site in America? Lena's blood went cold. What? Sam turned his phone around. The headline screamed across the screen. Vaughn engagement exposed. Billionaire's fiancée was paid actress in elaborate scheme. Below it, photographs. Lena and Caleb at the gala, yes, but also screenshots of what looked like contracts, bank transfers, emails between Caleb and someone named Gabrielle Chen discussing payment terms for fiancé services. The article laid it all out in brutal detail, how Caleb had hired an actress, how Lena had somehow ended up in her place, how the entire engagement was a fraud designed to appease his dying grandmother and secure his position at the company. I can explain, Lena started, but her voice came out thin and useless. You're engaged to Caleb Vaughn and you didn't tell anyone? Sam's expression was caught between impressed and furious. Lena, there are photographers outside, like right now. I've got customers filming you on their phones. Lena looked up and realized he was right. Every person in the coffee shop was staring at her, phones out, capturing her panic for social media. Through the front window, she could see a crowd gathering, cameras raised. Her phone rang again, Caleb this time. She answered with shaking hands. Tell me this isn't happening. Where are you? His voice was clipped, controlled, but she could hear the barely restrained fury underneath. Work. There are people everywhere. Caleb, what do we do? Stay there. I'm sending security. Don't talk to anyone. Don't go outside. Don't say anything. Understand? How did this happen? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. A pause, heavy with implications. Are you okay? No, I'm really not. 20 minutes. Just hold on. The line went dead. Lena stood behind the counter, surrounded by staring customers, while her phone continued to explode with notifications. Someone had found her social media, the accounts Caleb's team had set up for her, and the comments were vicious. Gold digger, liar, fraud. Worse things Lena couldn't make herself read. Sam touched her arm gently. Maybe you should go in the back. Maybe I should run and never stop. That's also an option. She retreated to the tiny break room and tried to breathe, tried to think. Someone had leaked the contracts. Someone had access to Caleb's private communications, his financial records, Everything they'd worked so hard to keep buried. Her phone rang. Eleanor this time. Don't answer it, Lena whispered to herself. But her hand moved anyway. Mrs. Vaughn! Are you hurt? Eleanor's voice was sharp despite its tremor. No, I'm not hurt, but everyone knows the whole thing, all of it. I'm aware. I'm looking at my computer screen right now, and apparently I'm a senile old woman being manipulated by my ambitious grandson. Eleanor made a sound that might have been a laugh. The internet has opinions. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to... Stop. This isn't your fault. A pause. Is it? No, I didn't leak anything. I wouldn't. I know. Which means someone else did. Someone who had access to information that should have been locked down. Eleanor's voice hardened. I'm going to find out who. In the meantime, you need to get somewhere safe. The press will eat you alive. Caleb's sending security. Good. When they arrive, go directly to his apartment. Don't stop. Don't talk to anyone. And Lena? Yes? This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The security team arrived 15 minutes later, 2 men in dark suits who looked like they could bench press a car. They formed a wall around Lena and escorted her out through the back entrance. But even that didn't save her from the cameras. Photographers had found the alley, were shouting questions, shoving microphones in her face. Lena, how much did he pay you? Is the engagement completely fake? Did you seduce him for money? The security guards pushed through without responding, and suddenly Lena was in the back of a car with tinted windows, pulling away from the only job she had left that felt normal. The apartment building Caleb lived in was in Tribeca, all understated wealth and doormen who looked like they could kill you with a stern glance. The security team brought her up through a private elevator, deposited her in a penthouse that was somehow both massive and sterile, and left her there alone. Lena stood in the middle of Caleb's living room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that was definitely designer, everything perfectly arranged and completely impersonal, and tried not to have a breakdown. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. What the actual fuck? Then another from her mother in Pennsylvania. Honey, I'm seeing some very concerning things online. Then a blocked number. You're a lying whore and everyone knows it now. Lena turned off her phone. The apartment was too quiet. She walked through it, cataloging details. The kitchen that looked unused, the home office with stacks of documents and a cold cup of coffee, Emma's room with its explosion of toys and drawings taped to the walls. There were photos on the hallway wall, all of Emma at various ages, but none of Sarah. Like Caleb had erased her from the physical space even though she clearly still haunted it. Lena found herself in what had to be his bedroom. The bed was made with military precision, the nightstand held a book he was apparently halfway through, and on the dresser sat a small wooden box, similar to the one Emma kept her mother's photo in. She shouldn't open it. She absolutely shouldn't. She opened it. Inside was a wedding ring, simple, gold, worn. Sarah's probably. Next to it, a photo of the three of them, Caleb, Sarah, baby Emma, all laughing at something outside the frame. Caleb looked younger, looser, like someone who hadn't yet learned to build walls. I forgot that was there. Lena spun to find Caleb standing in the doorway. He looked wrecked. Tie loose, hair disheveled, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's fine. He crossed to the dresser and picked up the photo, studying it like he'd forgotten what it looked like. Sarah hated having her picture taken. This is one of maybe 5 photos I have of the three of us together. She was beautiful. She was. He set the photo down carefully. She was also the worst cook I've ever met and had a terrible habit of leaving cabinet doors open, so I'd constantly walk into them. She sang off key and told dad jokes that made Emma groan even as a toddler. His smile was sad. Everyone wants to remember her as some perfect angel, but she was just a person, a good person, but still just a person. Lena didn't know what to say to that. Caleb closed the box and turned to face her. Are you okay? People are calling me a whore on the internet, so I've had better days. I saw. My PR team is working on it. Working on what? It's all true. We did fake the engagement. I am being paid. There's nothing to spin. There's always something to spin. But he didn't sound convinced. He moved past her, out of the bedroom, and Lena followed him back to the living room. Who leaked it? She asked. She tapan. We're still figuring that out. The contracts were secure, the emails were encrypted. Whoever did this had serious access. He poured himself a drink from the bar, didn't offer her one. Marcus is the obvious suspect. But I can't prove it. And without proof, accusing him just makes me look paranoid and desperate. He drank half the glass in one swallow. The board is calling an emergency meeting. They want to discuss whether this scandal affects my fitness to lead. Can they actually remove you? If they vote no confidence? Yes. Marcus has been building alliances for years. This might be the ammunition he needs. Caleb set down the glass. I'm sorry. This is my mess, and you got caught in it. We're both caught in it. No, I dragged you into it. There's a difference. He finally looked at her directly. The contract has a termination clause for exactly this scenario. Reputational damage outside your control. You can walk away right now with full payment and a confidentiality agreement that protects you from legal fallout. Lena stared at him. You're firing me. I'm giving you an exit. There's going to be a press conference tomorrow. I'm going to have to address this publicly, and anything I say will either throw you under the bus or make things worse for both of us. If you leave now, I can spin it as what? That I seduced you for money and you're the innocent victim? Lena's laugh was harsh. That's not going to work. Then I'll take full responsibility. Say I hired you, that you were just doing a job, that none of this is your fault, which makes me look like a prostitute instead of a gold digger. Great options. Caleb flinched. I don't know what else to do. How about we tell the truth? The truth is that I hired you to lie to my dying grandmother. That doesn't play well. The truth, Lena said carefully, is more complicated than that. Is it? She thought about Eleanor saying the lie had become real, about dancing with Caleb at the gala, about Emma crying in her arms, about all the moments in the past month that had felt less like acting and more like something else entirely. When did you start actually caring? She asked quietly. Caleb went very still. What? About me? About this? When did it stop being just a business arrangement? She moved closer. Because I know when it happened for me. It was at that first dinner when Emma asked if I was going to be her new mom, and you looked like someone had punched you. You were so desperate to protect her from being hurt again that you would have called the whole thing off right there if I'd pushed. That's when I realized you weren't just some cold billionaire playing chess with people's lives. Lena, so I'm asking you, when did you start caring? He stared at her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. The coffee shop, he said finally. What? When we were building our cover story, and you were adding all these little details about the lemon scone and the sweater you were wearing. You made it so real I almost believed it myself. He ran a hand through his hair. And then every dinner after that, every time you dealt with my family or played with Emma or just existed in my space, you weren't acting. You were just being yourself, and I started to wish the lie was true. The admission hung in the air between them, terrifying and honest. This is really bad timing, Lena said. Terrible timing. Your family is going to disown you. Your company might fire you. The entire internet thinks I'm a con artist. I know. And you're telling me you have actual feelings for me. I'm telling you, Caleb said carefully, that somewhere in the middle of this disaster, I forgot we were pretending. Lena's phone, still turned off, buzzed from her pocket with some notification that managed to break through anyway. A reminder that the outside world existed, that this wasn't some private moment but the eye of a hurricane that was about to tear them both apart. What do we do? She asked. Honestly, I have no idea. Caleb moved to the window, staring out at the city. Every option ends badly. We admit it was fake, I lose everything, and you become the villain. We claim it's real, nobody believes us, and we both look like liars. We go our separate ways, the damage is already done. So we're screwed no matter what. Pretty much. Lena joined him at the window. Somewhere down there, people were writing think pieces about her, tearing apart her background, her choices, everything about her that they could find. Nicole was probably fielding calls from reporters. Her mother was probably crying. The coffee shop was probably swamped with curiosity seekers. Eleanor said this wasn't over, Lena said. She would say that. She's fought her way through worse. Maybe we should fight too. Caleb looked at her. How? I don't know yet, but running away feels like letting Marcus win. And I'm really tired of people like Marcus getting everything they want while people like us get destroyed. Something fierce flashed across Caleb's face. You sound like my grandmother. I'll take that as a compliment. Before he could respond, the elevator dinged. They both turned as the doors opened and Eleanor walked out, leaning heavily on a cane Lena had never seen her use before. Patricia was behind her, looking simultaneously furious and resigned. Oh good, you're both here, Eleanor said. That saves time. Grandmother, you shouldn't have come. The stress of sitting at home while my family implodes is significantly worse than the stress of coming here to fix it. Eleanor moved to the couch and sat with visible relief. Patricia, pour me a drink. Something strong. Patricia moved to the bar without comment. Caleb and Lena exchanged glances. How did you even get past security? Caleb asked. I'm Eleanor Vaughn. I don't need permission to go anywhere. She accepted the drink Patricia handed her. Now sit down, both of you. We need to talk strategy. They sat. Eleanor took a long sip of her drink, then set it down with deliberate care. First things first, Marcus leaked the story. How do you know? Caleb asked. Because I've known that boy his entire life, and he's never been as clever as he thinks he is. He hired someone to hack your systems, got access to your emails and contracts, and handed everything to that gossip site with the understanding they'd run it immediately. Eleanor's expression was cold. What he didn't count on was me having better hackers. You have hackers? Lena's voice came out strangled. Darling, I have everything, including proof that Marcus paid for the leak. She pulled a folded document from her bag and handed it to Caleb. Bank transfers, emails, the works. Enough to bury him in legal trouble and family disgrace. Caleb scanned the papers, his expression darkening with each page. This is ammunition, Eleanor finished. The question is how we use it. We destroy him, Patricia said from her position by the bar. We release this, show the board what he did, and watch him lose everything. That's the nuclear option, Eleanor agreed. But it's not the smart option. What's the smart option? Lena asked. Eleanor's smile was sharp. We turned this entire disaster into the greatest love story Manhattan has ever seen. Silence fell over the room. Caleb looked like he was trying to solve a complex equation. Patricia looked skeptical. Lena just felt confused. I don't understand, she said. The story right now is that Caleb hired a fake fiancé to trick his dying grandmother. That's bad. It makes him look manipulative and makes you look mercenary. Eleanor leaned forward. But what if the real story is that he hired someone to play a part and then fell genuinely in love with her? What if this isn't a con but a romance that started under unusual circumstances and became real despite both of you fighting it? That's, Caleb started. True, Eleanor finished. Isn't it? The question landed like a bomb. Caleb and Lena looked at each other, and Lena saw her own confusion reflected in his face. We can't prove that, Caleb said carefully. Can't you? Eleanor gestured between them. I've watched you two over the past month. The way you look at each other when you think nobody's watching, the way Lena handles Emma with genuine care, not performance, the way you've started smiling again, Caleb, for the first time in 3 years. Her voice softened. This started as a lie, but somewhere along the way, it became the truth. All we're doing is admitting that publicly. The internet will tear us apart, Lena said. The internet is already tearing you apart. At least this way you control the narrative. Patricia moved to sit beside Eleanor. For what it's worth, I think Mother is right. I've seen the two of you together. Either you're both incredible actors or something real developed. Caleb stood abruptly, started pacing. This is insane. We can't just... Can't what? Eleanor asked. Can't tell the truth? Can't admit that two people thrown together by unusual circumstances found something genuine? She struggled to her feet, waving off Patricia's attempt to help. Caleb, I'm dying. We all know it. I have maybe 3 months left if I'm lucky, and in that time I would very much like to see you stop running from anything that might make you feel something. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Sarah died. You were left alone with a baby and a company and grief you never processed. Marcus is trying to steal everything your father built. And now this girl, she gestured at Lena, this brave, stubborn girl who could have walked away a dozen times but didn't, is sitting here ready to fight beside you. So stop being a coward and decide what you actually want. The silence that followed was absolute. Caleb looked at Lena. What do you want? I want to stop lying, she said quietly. To everyone, including myself. Meaning this stopped being about the money weeks ago. Meaning I care about Emma, and I care about your grandmother, and I care about... She stopped, the words catching in her throat. About me? Caleb finished. Yes, about you. Even though you're stubborn and emotionally constipated and you work too much and you're terrible at asking for help. She stood, needing to move. But I also know that caring about someone isn't enough. You have a daughter who lost her mother, a grandmother who's dying, a company on the line. I'm just a barista from Brooklyn who happened to walk into the wrong hallway at the wrong time. Or the right time, Eleanor murmured. Caleb crossed to Lena in 3 strides, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I don't want you to walk away. Even if staying means fighting through this mess, even if the press destroys us both? Especially then. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone in a gesture that was achingly gentle. I'm tired of safe. I'm tired of controlled. I want something real, even if it's complicated and messy and completely terrifying. That's the worst decision you've ever made, Lena whispered. Probably. He smiled, and it transformed his face. But I'm making it anyway. Eleanor cleared her throat delicately. As touching as this is, we still need a plan. The press conference is tomorrow at noon. What are we telling them? Caleb didn't look away from Lena. The truth, that I hired her, that it was supposed to be fake, and that somewhere along the way it became the most real thing in my life. And me? Lena asked. What do I say? That you took a job you needed and found something you didn't expect. His other hand found hers, threading their fingers together. That you're here by choice now, not contract. They'll call me a liar, a gold digger, worse. Probably, but I'll be standing next to you when they do. Patricia made a small sound that might have been approval. Eleanor just smiled, satisfied, like she'd been orchestrating this outcome from the beginning. There's still Marcus, Patricia pointed out. He won't just accept defeat. No, Eleanor agreed, which is why we're going to make him an offer. What kind of offer? Caleb asked. The kind where he backs off completely, drops any challenge to your leadership, and quietly exits the company. Or we release everything we have on him and destroy his reputation so thoroughly he'll never work in this city again. Eleanor's expression was pleasant, but her eyes were ice. I suspect he'll take the first option. That's blackmail, Lena said. That's business, dear. And family. Sometimes they're the same thing. Caleb's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned. It's my PR director. She's been calling all day. Answer it, Eleanor said. Tell her we're doing a joint press conference tomorrow. You, Lena, and me. We're presenting a united front. You don't have to. I'm dying, Caleb. I get to spend my remaining time however I want. And I want to spend it making sure my grandson doesn't throw away his chance at happiness because he's afraid of what people might think. She settled back on the couch. Now answer your phone and tell your PR team to earn their exorbitant salaries. The next 12 hours were a blur. Caleb's PR director, a fierce woman named Monica who looked like she hadn't slept in days, arrived within the hour and immediately started coordinating strategy. Patricia made calls to board members, preemptively addressing concerns. Eleanor sat in the center of it all like a general directing troops, her tremor getting worse as the night wore on, but her mind sharp as ever. Lena found herself in Caleb's home office at 2 a.m, going over talking points while he fielded calls, and Monica rehearsed responses to anticipated questions. Emma had been dropped off by her nanny around midnight. Apparently sleepovers at her grandmother's had become routine, and was now asleep in her room, blissfully unaware that her entire world was about to be dissected on live television. You should get some rest, Caleb said, ending yet another call. So should you. I don't think I can. They were alone for the first time in hours. Monica had gone to grab coffee, Patricia and Eleanor had retired to guest rooms, and the apartment was finally quiet. Are we really doing this? Lena asked. Standing in front of cameras and admitting we fell for each other while lying to everyone? Yes, apparently we are. He rubbed his face. You can still back out. Stop giving me exits. I'm trying to be decent. Try being honest instead. She moved closer. Are you scared? Terrified. You? Same. She took his hand. But I meant what I said. I'm not walking away. Caleb pulled her closer, and for a moment they just stood there, holding each other in the quiet office while the city hummed outside. His heartbeat was steady under her ear, his arms solid around her back. Thank you, he murmured into her hair. For what? For being crazy enough to stay. Morning came too fast. Lena woke on Caleb's couch. She didn't remember falling asleep, but someone had covered her with a blanket, to find Monica already back in the apartment full of activity again. Makeup artists, stylists, security coordinators, all preparing for the press conference that would either save them or destroy them completely. Emma wandered out of her room around 8, took one look at the chaos, and climbed into Lena's lap. Why are there so many people here? Your dad and I have to talk to some reporters today. It's kind of a big deal. Are you in trouble? Sort of. Is it my fault? Emma's voice went small. Because you're marrying Daddy because of me? Lena's heart cracked. No, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. This is grown-up stuff that has nothing to do with you. But people are saying mean things. I heard Aunt Patricia on the phone. People say mean things sometimes. That doesn't make them true. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, do you love my daddy? The question shouldn't have surprised her, but it did. Lena looked across the room to where Caleb was deep in conversation with his lawyers, his tie already loose despite the early hour, exhaustion carved into every line of his body. Yes, she said quietly. I do. Good. Emma snuggled closer. He loves you too, I can tell. How? He smiles different now, like he means it. At 11:30, they gathered in the lobby of Vaughn Technologies headquarters, where a small army of press had assembled. Cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions, the air thick with anticipation and judgment. Eleanor sat in a wheelchair, a concession to her failing body that she'd fought but ultimately accepted, with Patricia standing guard beside her. Caleb stood at the podium, Lena at his right, both of them dressed in clothes Monica had deemed appropriately serious but not funereal. The room fell silent when Caleb raised his hand. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to make a statement and then we'll take a few questions. He glanced at Lena and she nodded. Yesterday, a story broke about my engagement to Lena Brooks. The story claimed that our entire relationship was fabricated, a business arrangement designed to fool my family and secure my position at this company. And I'm here to tell you that parts of that story are true. A ripple went through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Lena felt her heart hammering but kept her expression neutral. I did initially hire someone to pose as my fiancé, Caleb continued. My grandmother is dying and her last wish was to see me settled. I was desperate to give her that peace, and I made a choice that was, in retrospect, both arrogant and short-sighted. I arranged for an actress to play the role for a few months. Then why is Lena Brooks here? Someone shouted. Because the actress didn't show up. And Lena, he looked at her fully now, and Lena saw everything in his expression, all the fear and hope and desperate honesty. Lena was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mistook her for the person I'd hired, pulled her into a ballroom full of people, and kissed her in front of cameras before she even knew my name. Lena stepped closer to the microphone. I should have walked away. Any reasonable person would have. But he offered me money I desperately needed, and I agreed to keep pretending. For 3 months, that was the deal. So it was a business arrangement, a reporter called out. It started that way, Lena agreed. But something happened that neither of us planned for. We started to care about each other. Really care. Not because of the contract or the money or the public appearances, but because when you spend that much time pretending to be someone's partner, sometimes you actually become it. Eleanor's voice cut through the murmurs. My grandson made a stupid choice. But I've watched them over these past weeks, and I'm telling you, what started as a lie became something real. They fell in love despite themselves, despite the circumstances, despite every reason not to. With respect, Mrs. Vaughn, how can we believe that? Someone asked. How do we know this isn't just another performance? You don't, Caleb said bluntly. You have no reason to believe us. We lied to you, to my family, to everyone. And we're sorry for that. But I'm standing here today asking you to believe that people can change, that situations can evolve, that love can grow in unexpected places. And the money? Another reporter pressed. Is she still being paid? No, Lena said firmly. As of today, the contract is void. I'm here because I want to be, not because I'm being compensated. Then you're giving up $75,000? I'm giving up a lie. I'm keeping something real instead. The questions came rapid fire after that, some hostile, some genuinely curious, all demanding proof of something that couldn't be proven. Caleb fielded them with patience Lena didn't know he possessed, never deflecting to her, always taking responsibility. Eleanor interjected when needed, her authority cutting through the skepticism like a blade, and Lena stood beside them, answering honestly, admitting her mistakes, refusing to pretend she was anything other than a woman who'd taken a terrible deal and found something unexpectedly worth keeping. After 45 minutes, Monica stepped in and called an end to questions. The reporters kept shouting anyway, but security began clearing the room. Caleb stepped back from the podium and immediately reached for Lena's hand. "You did great," he murmured. "We both did. It doesn't mean they believed us." "No, but at least we told the truth." Patricia wheeled Eleanor toward the elevator, calling back that they'd wait upstairs. Monica was already on her phone, monitoring reaction in real time, her expression giving nothing away. Caleb and Lena followed more slowly, still holding hands, both exhausted and wired at once. In the elevator, alone for 30 seconds, Caleb pulled Lena against him and just held her. "Whatever happens now," he said into her hair, "thank you for staying." "Whatever happens now," Lena echoed, "we face it together." The elevator doors opened onto chaos. Board members were arriving for an emergency meeting, staff were fielding calls, and someone had apparently sent flowers. Dozens of bouquets, some supportive, some sarcastic, all demanding attention. Emma was there too, having been brought from school by her nanny, and she ran straight to Lena with a fierceness that nearly knocked her over. "Did you tell them?" Emma demanded. "Did you tell them you love Daddy?" "I did." "And did they believe you?" Lena crouched down to Emma's level. "Some of them probably did. Some of them probably didn't. But the important thing is that it's true." Emma studied her seriously, then nodded like Lena had passed some crucial test. "Okay, then I believe you too." Across the room, Marcus appeared in the doorway. He looked at the scene, Caleb, Lena, Emma, Eleanor in her wheelchair, and something complicated passed across his face. Then he turned and left without a word. "Should we go after him?" Patricia asked. "No," Eleanor said quietly. "Let him go. He knows what we have. He'll make his choice." And just like that, the waiting began. Waiting for the board's decision. Waiting for public opinion to shift one way or another. Waiting to see if telling the truth would save them or destroy them both. Lena sat beside Eleanor while Caleb went to face the board. Emma curled in her lap and wondered how her life had gone from borrowed dresses and empty bank accounts to this. A billionaire's apartment, a dying woman's blessing, and a love she hadn't meant to find but couldn't imagine giving up. "You know what the hardest part is?" Eleanor said softly. "What?" "Not knowing if I'll live long enough to see how this ends." She patted Lena's hand. "But I suppose that's true for all of us, isn't it? None of us know how our stories end." "Then I hope yours ends with knowing you did everything you could to save him." Eleanor's smile was tired but genuine. "Oh, darling, I'm not saving him. You are. I'm just making sure he's smart enough to let you." The board meeting lasted 4 hours. Lena knew because she watched every minute tick by on the massive clock in Caleb's office. Emma asleep against her shoulder, Eleanor dozing in the wheelchair with Patricia standing guard like a sentinel. Nobody spoke much. There wasn't anything left to say that hadn't already been said to cameras and reporters and the entire judging world. When Caleb finally walked back in, his tie was gone completely and his shirt sleeves were rolled up. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 hours. "Well?" Eleanor asked, instantly awake. "They voted to keep me as CEO. Barely. 8-7. He collapsed into his desk chair. 3 board members wanted me removed immediately. Marcus apparently spent the last month building a coalition, promising them I was unstable, unreliable. Today's press conference actually helped, showed I was willing to be transparent, take responsibility. But it was close." "What about Marcus?" Patricia asked. "He's out. Resigned effective immediately. They gave him a severance package to avoid a public fight, but he's gone." Caleb rubbed his eyes. "Eleanor, he took your offer. Everything you had on him stays buried as long as he disappears quietly. Smart boy, Eleanor murmured. Foolish, but smart when cornered. Lena shifted carefully, trying not to wake Emma. So what happens now? Now we survive the fallout. The press is already divided. Half think we're a love story, half think we're liars who got caught and scrambled for damage control. The board wants me to keep a low profile for a few months, let things settle. He looked at Lena with something raw in his expression. They also suggested it might be wise to postpone any actual wedding until the scandal dies down. Of course they did, Eleanor said dryly, because nothing says stability like a man who publicly admits to hiring a fake fiancée and then refuses to marry her. I didn't say I agreed with them. Didn't you? Eleanor's gaze was sharp. You're already calculating, I can see it, thinking about optics and timing and what's strategically sound. I'm thinking about protecting Lena from more public scrutiny than she's already endured. Stop deciding what's best for me without asking, Lena said quietly. Emma stirred against her shoulder, but didn't wake. I'm sitting right here. Caleb's expression shifted. You're right. I'm sorry. What do you want? I want to know if we're actually doing this or if we're just playing a different version of the same game. What's that supposed to mean? It means I stood in front of cameras and admitted I love you. It means I walked away from $75,000 to stay here on principle. And now you're already talking about postponing, about keeping low profiles, about strategy. Lena stood carefully, settling Emma into the chair. So I'm asking, is this real or isn't it? The office went very quiet. Patricia looked uncomfortable. Eleanor looked satisfied, like Lena had finally asked the question she'd been waiting for. Caleb stood and crossed to Lena in 3 strides. It's real. Everything I said at that press conference, everything I've felt for the past month, all of it is real, but I'm also terrified of what loving me is going to cost you. That's my choice to make, not yours. Is it? Because the internet is still calling you a gold digger. Your coffee shop had to close today because of protesters. Your mother called me directly, your mother, Lena, to ask if I was taking advantage of you. Lena flinched. She'd been avoiding her mother's calls, unable to face that particular conversation. My point, Caleb continued, softer now, is that being with me comes with consequences you didn't sign up for. And if postponing a wedding gives you space to figure out what you actually want without the pressure of cameras and public opinion, I know what I want, Lena interrupted. I want you to stop protecting me from myself. I want you to trust that I'm strong enough to handle whatever comes. And I want you to stop thinking everything has to be a calculated decision. Some things have to be. Not love. Love is the one thing you can't strategize. She stepped closer, forcing him to really look at her. I didn't fall for CEO Caleb Vaughn, who gives perfect speeches and runs board meetings. I fell for the man who panicked in a hallway, who reads his daughter bedtime stories in terrible character voices, who keeps his dead wife's wedding ring in a box because he's not ready to let go but can't keep looking at it either. Caleb's breath caught. How did you? The box was open when I found it. I saw. She reached up to touch his face. You're messy and complicated and you have terrible coping mechanisms, and I love you anyway, so stop trying to fix this into something clean and manageable, because that's not what we are. For a long moment, Caleb just stared at her. Then he pulled her against him, wrapping his arms around her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. I don't know how to do this, he whispered into her hair. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. Eleanor cleared her throat delicately. As touching as this is, I'm an old woman who needs her rest. Patricia, take me home before I fall asleep in this uncomfortable chair and wake up even more decrepit than I already am. You're not decrepit, Patricia said, but she was already moving to the wheelchair. I'm dying, darling. That's the definition of decrepit. Eleanor held out a hand to Lena. Come here, child. Lena went. Eleanor's grip was weaker than it had been even a week ago, the tremor more pronounced. You've been very brave, Eleanor said quietly. Braver than most people would have been in your position. But the hard part isn't over. The world is going to keep judging you, keep questioning whether you're worthy of this life. You'll have to prove yourself over and over again, and it won't be fair. I know. Good. Because I need you to promise me something. What? Don't let this family destroy you. Not the judgment, not the politics, not the weight of the Vaughn name. Stay yourself. That's the only reason this works. Because you're real in a world of people playing parts. Eleanor's eyes were fierce despite their weariness. Promise me. I promise. And take care of him. He's going to try to be strong and stoic and in control, and you're going to have to remind him that it's okay to fall apart sometimes. Lena glanced at Caleb, who was pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. I can do that. I know you can. That's why I'm trusting you with him. Eleanor released her hand. Now go home, all of you. This old woman needs her bed. Patricia wheeled her toward the elevator, and Lena heard Eleanor say, That went well, don't you think? Just before the doors closed, Caleb laughed quietly. She's been orchestrating this entire thing from the beginning. You're just figuring that out now? I'm a slow learner when it comes to my grandmother's schemes. He picked up Emma carefully, and she mumbled something incoherent but didn't wake. Come on, let's go home. Home. The word settled over Lena like a blanket. Not her tiny Brooklyn apartment that she'd already given notice on. The landlord had been thrilled to have a suddenly famous tenant leave. But Caleb's penthouse. Their penthouse, maybe, if she let herself think about it that way. The car ride was quiet. Emma woke up briefly to ask if everything was okay, accepted Caleb's reassurance, and fell back asleep against Lena's shoulder. The city slid past the windows, and Lena watched people going about their lives, completely unaware that hers had just been dissected on live television. Her phone, turned back on out of necessity, had approximately 800 notifications. She ignored all of them except one text from Nicole. I don't care what the internet says. You're still my best friend, and you're still paying your half of the electricity bill until the lease is up. Lena smiled and typed back, Deal. Coffee next week? The response came immediately. You're buying. Rich people buy coffee. I'm not rich. You're engaged to a billionaire. Close enough. Back at the apartment, Caleb carried Emma to her room while Lena stood in the living room and tried to process the fact that this was her life now. Designer furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen she was afraid to use because everything looked too expensive to touch. You're overthinking, Caleb said, returning from Emma's room. I'm appropriately thinking there's a difference. Is there? He moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of wine, handed her one. To surviving our first public scandal. Hopefully our last. With this family? Unlikely. He took a long drink. Marcus sent me a message. Very brief, very bitter. Said I'd regret choosing you over family loyalty. Do you? Not even a little. He set down his glass and turned to face her fully. Lena, I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond. Her stomach tightened. Okay. When Sarah died, I thought my chance at this, he gestured vaguely between them, died with her. I thought I'd had my shot at love and partnership and all of that, and now my job was just to survive. Raise Emma, run the company, get through each day without falling apart. He moved closer. And then you walked into that hallway in a borrowed dress, and I grabbed you like a drowning man grabbing a life raft, and you could have run, should have run. But you didn't. Caleb, let me finish. His hand found hers. These past weeks with you have reminded me what it feels like to be human, to laugh at something genuinely funny instead of strategically, to care about someone because I want to, not because I'm obligated to feel something other than exhaustion and responsibility. His voice roughened. You saved me, Lena. And I know that's a lot of pressure to put on one person, and I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Actually marry me. Not because of contracts or public opinion or my grandmother's manipulation, but because you want to? Lena stared at him. You're proposing. Again. Technically, this is the first real one. We're already engaged. We're fake engaged. This is me asking for real. He pulled the ring off her finger, the same ring he'd given her in his office, and held it up. So what do you say? Want to marry a workaholic billionaire with family drama and a 5-year-old daughter and absolutely no idea how to do this, right? Lena thought about all the reasons she should say no. The continued public scrutiny, the family politics, the vast difference in their backgrounds and bank accounts, the fact that they'd known each other for barely 2 months, most of which had been built on lies. Then she thought about Caleb reading Emma terrible bedtime stories, about Eleanor's fierce protectiveness, About the way it felt when Caleb looked at her like she was the only real thing in his entire manufactured world. Yes, she said, but I have conditions. Relief flooded his face. Name them. First, we do this at our pace, not the board's or the press's or anyone else's. If we want to get married tomorrow or in 2 years, that's our choice. Agreed. Second, I keep working. Maybe not at the coffee shop anymore, but I'm not becoming someone who just attends charity lunches and plans parties. I need purpose beyond being your wife. What do you want to do? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out and you'll support it, even if it's weird or unconventional. Done. What else? Third, Emma comes first, always. If she's struggling with this, if she needs space, if she never wants to call me mom, that's okay. I'm not trying to replace Sarah. Caleb's expression went soft. She already loves you. You know that, right? She asks about you constantly when you're not here. She's 5 and processing her grandmother dying and her dad's very public scandal. Love is complicated right now. Fair enough. Anything else? Lena took a breath. Don't make me into someone I'm not. I'm always going to be the girl from Brooklyn who didn't grow up with money or private schools or summer homes. I'm going to say the wrong thing at fancy dinners and probably offend someone important, and I need you to be okay with that. I'm more than okay with it. That's exactly who I want you to be. He slid the ring back onto her finger. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Caleb kissed her then, soft and careful and full of promise. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For giving me a second chance at this. At everything. The next few weeks were a strange combination of chaos and settling. The press coverage gradually shifted from scandal to reluctant romance as more photos surfaced. Lena with Emma at the park, Caleb looking at Lena with undisguised affection during a charity event, the family presenting a united front at various functions. Public opinion remained divided, but the viciousness faded as newer scandals took over the news cycle. Lena moved into the penthouse officially, though it took her 3 weeks to actually unpack because the whole thing still felt surreal. Emma helped, delighted to have Lena there permanently, though she still had moments where she'd withdraw, needing space to process everything changing around her. Is it weird that you're here all the time now? Emma asked one night while Lena was tucking her in. Probably a little weird, yeah. Do you miss your old apartment? Sometimes. It was small and the heat didn't work great, but it was mine, you know? Emma nodded seriously. I miss my old house sometimes, before Mommy died, even though this place is bigger and nicer. That makes sense. Missing things isn't about which place is better. It's about which place holds your memories. Will you tell me about your old place? What it was like? So Lena told her about the apartment in Brooklyn, about Nicole and their terrible furniture, and the neighbor who played saxophone at 2 a.m. Emma listened with the intensity of someone archiving information for later, and Lena realized this was how they'd build their relationship, through small moments of honesty, not grand gestures or forced bonding. Eleanor's condition deteriorated steadily. Some days she was sharp and fierce, orchestrating family politics from her bed. Other days she slept through visits, her breathing labored, her body finally giving up the fight her mind refused to surrender. Lena visited her every Tuesday and Thursday, usually bringing Emma. Eleanor seemed to rally when Emma was there, summoning energy from some reserve Lena didn't understand. Tell me about the wedding plans, Eleanor said during one visit, her voice thin but interested. We're thinking small, just family. Maybe spring. Boring. You should do something dramatic. Get married in the museum where you had the gala. Full circle. That feels a little on the nose. Life should be on the nose sometimes. Eleanor reached for Lena's hand. I won't be there, you know. At the wedding. Lena's throat tightened. You don't know that. Darling, I'm 83 and dying. I know exactly that. But she smiled. It's all right. I've seen what I needed to see. My grandson happy again. Emma adjusting. You becoming part of this family despite having every reason to run screaming. That's enough. It's not enough for me. No. But it'll have to be. Eleanor's grip weakened. Do something for me? Anything. When I'm gone, don't let them make me into a saint. I was difficult and manipulative, and I interfered in people's lives constantly. Let me be remembered as a complicated woman who loved fiercely, not some perfect matriarch. I can do that. Good. And Lena, thank you for making my last months interesting. I haven't had this much fun in years. Lena stayed until Eleanor fell asleep, then sat in the car outside the townhouse and cried for 20 minutes before pulling herself together enough to face dinner with Caleb and Emma. Work became Lena's unexpected salvation. She'd assumed she'd struggle to find purpose beyond being Caleb's fiancée, but Eleanor, in one of her sharper moments, suggested Lena join the board of the Vaughn Foundation, the family's charitable organization. The other board members were skeptical at first, clearly viewing her as a token appointment, but Lena had grown up poor enough to know exactly where money could make a difference. She pushed for scholarships for first-generation college students, for funding community programs in neighborhoods the foundation had overlooked, for actually listening to the people they claimed to serve instead of deciding from boardrooms what poor people needed. "You're making enemies," Patricia warned her after one particularly contentious meeting. "Good. If I'm not making enemies, I'm not doing anything worthwhile." Patricia's smile was approving. "You're more like Eleanor than you realize." The comment stayed with Lena longer than she expected. She wasn't trying to become Eleanor, wasn't trying to transform into some society matriarch. But maybe there was room to be both. The girl from Brooklyn and the woman with access to resources that could actually help people like her younger self. Nicole remained Lena's anchor to reality. They met for coffee every week, and Nicole never let Lena forget where she came from. "You're wearing a watch that costs more than my car," Nicole observed during one meeting. "Caleb gave it to me. I told him it was too much. And yet you're wearing it. It was a gift. I didn't want to be rude." "Lena, you're engaged to a billionaire. You live in a penthouse. You have people who do your laundry. You can admit that part of you likes it without it making you a bad person." Lena stirred her coffee, which, ironically, she'd paid for despite Nicole's earlier insistence that rich people always buy. "I'm scared of losing myself in it." "Then don't. Keep coming to coffee with me. Keep arguing with foundation board members. Keep being the person who sees problems instead of just accepting that's how things are." Nicole's expression softened. "You're allowed to enjoy nice things and still be you. Those aren't mutually exclusive. When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You're just finally in a position to appreciate it." Marcus's departure left a vacuum in the family that nobody seemed eager to fill. He'd sent one last message to Caleb, a formal apology that read like it had been written by lawyers, and then vanished from their lives. Rumors surfaced occasionally about him starting a new venture in California, but nobody in the family mentioned him directly. "Do you miss him?" Lena asked Caleb one night. "Miss him? No, we were never close." He was quiet for a moment. "But I miss the idea of him, maybe. The cousin I thought I had when we were kids, before money and power made everything complicated. You could reach out." "I could, but some bridges burn for good reasons." He pulled her closer on the couch. "Besides, I've got enough family drama without inviting more back in." Emma's adjustment was gradual and imperfect. She had good days where she called Lena her almost mom, and bad days where she'd cry for Sarah and refuse to let Lena comfort her. The school counselor said it was normal, that grief didn't follow timelines or rules, that Emma was processing trauma at her own pace. "Am I doing this wrong?" Lena asked Caleb after a particularly difficult night where Emma had screamed that she wanted her real mom, not a replacement. "There is no wrong way. You're showing up, you're patient, you're not forcing anything. That's all we can do." "It doesn't feel like enough." "It rarely does, but watch. Tomorrow she'll probably come downstairs and ask you to make pancakes like nothing happened. That's how kids work." He was right. The next morning, Emma appeared in the kitchen and asked if Lena could put chocolate chips in the pancakes, and they spent breakfast discussing which Disney princess had the best superpower. The outburst from the night before went unmentioned, filed away as just another wave in the complicated ocean of grief. Eleanor died on a Tuesday in November, 3 months almost to the day after Lena had first walked into that hallway in a borrowed dress. Patricia called at 6 in the morning. Eleanor had passed in her sleep peacefully, exactly as she'd wanted. The family was gathering at the townhouse. Lena found Caleb in his office, staring at nothing, the news clearly already delivered. She didn't say anything, just went to him and held him while he finally let himself fall apart. "I knew it was coming," he said against her shoulder. "I've known for months. Why does it still feel like this?" Because knowing someone's going to die and actually losing them are different things. He cried quietly, not the dramatic grief of movies, but the exhausted tears of someone who'd been bracing for impact and finally got hit. Lena just held him, offering nothing but presents because that was all she had to give. Emma took it harder. She'd known her grandmother was sick, but 5-year-olds don't really understand forever. When Lena told her that Eleanor had gone to be with her mother, Emma's face crumpled. "Everyone leaves," she whispered. "Not everyone. Your dad's here. I'm here. You promise?" It was a promise Lena had no business making. Life had already taught Emma that promises could break. But she made it anyway. "I promise. I'm not going anywhere." The funeral was massive, befitting a woman who'd built an empire and shaped 3 generations. Hundreds of people came to pay respects, from business titans to the janitor who'd worked in the Vaughn building for 30 years and whose daughter Eleanor had personally sent to college. Lena stood beside Caleb during the service, watching him deliver a eulogy that was honest and loving and didn't shy away from Eleanor's difficult edges. He talked about her ruthlessness and her generosity, her manipulation and her fierce loyalty, painting a picture of a complicated woman who'd refused to be simple. "She told me once that love was the only thing worth building a legacy around," Caleb said, his voice steady despite his grief. "Everything else, money, power, reputation, that all crumbles eventually. But love, if you do it right, that echoes through generations." He looked directly at Lena. "She taught me that, and I'm grateful I got to learn the lesson before it was too late." At the reception afterward, person after person approached Lena to share Eleanor's stories. Some touching, some hilarious, all revealing different facets of the woman who'd orchestrated this entire complicated journey. "She told me you were good for Caleb," one older woman said. "Said you had spine, which was rare in this family. I didn't believe her at first. Thought you were just another pretty face. But I was wrong. Eleanor usually was right about people." Patricia found Lena in a quiet corner later, looking exhausted and older than Lena had ever seen her. "She left you something," Patricia said, handing over a sealed envelope. "Instructions were to give it to you today." Inside was a handwritten letter in Eleanor's shaky script. "Lena, if you're reading this, I'm dead, which is both a relief and deeply inconvenient. There's so much more I wanted to see, but I suppose 3 extra months wasn't bad considering the doctors gave me one. I'm writing this to thank you. Not for marrying my grandson, though I approve of that too, but for reminding an old woman that love is still worth fighting for. You took a terrible situation and turned it into something real. That takes courage most people don't have. I'm also writing to give you permission to fail. You're going to make mistakes as Caleb's wife, as Emma's stepmother, as part of this family. You're going to say the wrong thing, offend the wrong people, question whether you belong. That's normal. Don't let it break you. This family needs someone like you, someone who didn't grow up in this world, who sees it clearly without the rose-colored glasses money provides. Don't lose that perspective. Don't let them smooth away your edges to make you more palatable. And tell my grandson that I forgive him for the fake engagement. It was a stupid plan, but it brought him you, so I'll call it a net positive. Love fiercely, live honestly, and don't take any nonsense from board members who think they know better than you." With affection and exasperation, Eleanor Lena read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in her purse. Around her, the reception continued, people celebrating a life well lived and mourning a loss deeply felt. Caleb appeared at her elbow. "You okay?" "Your grandmother left me a letter." "Of course she did. She leave me one too?" "Didn't say. You should ask Patricia." "Later." He took her hand. "Come on, Emma's asking for you." They found Emma in his garden, sitting on a bench and staring at the flowers Eleanor had loved. She looked small and lost in her black dress. "Hey, sweetheart," Lena said, sitting beside her. "Everyone's talking about Grandma, saying nice things. That's what people do at funerals. But some of the things aren't true. Mrs. Henderson said Grandma was always so sweet and patient. But Grandma yelled at her last month about the quarterly reports." Caleb choked on a laugh. "You're right. Grandma wasn't always sweet. So why are people lying?" "They're not lying exactly," Lena said carefully. "They're remembering the parts of her they loved best. That's okay. But I want to remember all of her, even the parts that weren't nice." Emma's chin trembled. "Is that bad?" "No, baby. That's actually perfect." Lena pulled her close. "That's how you really honor someone, by remembering who they actually were, not who people wish they'd been. Emma nodded against her shoulder and they sat there in Eleanor's garden while the reception continued inside, three people learning how to be a family without the woman who'd pushed them together. The wedding happened 6 months later, in April, when the weather was unpredictable and beautiful. They did it at the museum after all. Eleanor had been right about the symbolism, but kept it small. 50 people, mostly family and close friends, in a ceremony that lasted 20 minutes and felt exactly right. Lena wore a dress Margot had helped her choose, simple and elegant, and nothing like the borrowed white dress that had started everything. Emma stood beside her as flower girl, taking her responsibility with 5-year-old seriousness. Nicole stood on Lena's other side, crying happy tears and making jokes about how her roommate had upgraded. Patricia walked Lena down the aisle, a choice that had surprised everyone, including Lena. But Patricia had been Eleanor's daughter, and in some weird way, this felt like Eleanor giving her away by proxy. Caleb waited at the altar, looking nervous and happy, and completely unlike the controlled businessman who'd grabbed her in that hallway 8 months ago. When the officiant asked if he took Lena to be his wife, his voice broke slightly on the "I do." Lena's vows were simple. I promise to love you on the days you deserve it and the days you don't. I promise to remind you you're human when you forget. I promise to be honest even when it's hard. And I promise to stay not because a contract says so, but because I choose you. Every day I choose you. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The reception was at the penthouse. They're home now. Though Lena still sometimes caught herself thinking of it as Caleb's space. Emma had requested a chocolate fountain, so there was a chocolate fountain. Nicole had requested an open bar, so there was an open bar. And somewhere between the cake cutting and the first dance, Lena found herself standing at the window overlooking the city, watching the sun set over Manhattan. "Penny for your thoughts," Caleb said, joining her. "Just thinking about how different my life is now than it was a year ago." "Better?" "Different. Sometimes better. Sometimes just different." She leaned against him. "I still can't believe this is real sometimes. That I actually married you. Want to know a secret?" "What?" "I still can't believe you said yes. Twice." He kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for taking a chance on a workaholic with family drama and terrible coping mechanisms. Thank you for being brave enough to grab a stranger in a hallway and change both our lives." They stood there while their party continued behind them, and Lena thought about everything it had taken to get here. The lies, the scandal, the grief, the growth. Eleanor's manipulation and Marcus's betrayal, and all the small moments in between where they'd chosen each other over easier paths. "Do you think Eleanor would approve?" Lena asked. "Are you kidding? She orchestrated half of this. She's probably watching from wherever she is and taking credit for the whole thing." "She'd be right to." "Yeah, she would." Emma appeared at their side, champagne glass full of apple juice in hand. "Everyone wants to toast you guys again. Aunt Patricia is getting impatient." "Can't keep Aunt Patricia waiting," Caleb said, but he squeezed Lena's hand once before turning back to the party. The toast was lovely. Patricia spoke about Eleanor's final wish to see Caleb happy. Nicole told embarrassing stories about Lena's dating history, and someone Lena didn't know gave a speech about the Vaughn legacy that went on too long. But through it all, Emma stayed close to Lena, and Caleb kept finding her eyes across the room, and it felt real in a way nothing had felt real in that ballroom 8 months ago. Later, after the guests had left and Emma was asleep in her room and the caterers had packed up, Lena and Caleb sat on their couch and just breathed. "We did it," Caleb said. "We did. Think we can do the rest? The actual marriage part, the raising Emma part, the navigating life part. Honestly, I have no idea. We'll probably mess it up regularly." "Probably? But we'll mess it up together, which has to count for something." Caleb pulled her close, and they sat there in their expensive apartment with their complicated past and their uncertain future. Two people who'd started as strangers and become something neither of them had expected. In the end, that was the thing about love. It couldn't be bought, couldn't be faked, couldn't be controlled no matter how hard you tried. It grew in unexpected places, between unlikely people, in the spaces between lies and truth. Eleanor had known that, had bet everything on it actually, when she'd let her grandson's desperate plan play out instead of stopping it. And she'd been right. The lie had become real. The fake engagement had become genuine love. The woman in the borrowed dress had become family. Not because it was easy or neat or made perfect sense, but because sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never planned for. The ones that grab you in a hallway when you're lost and looking for a bathroom, and change everything without asking permission first. Lena thought about the girl she'd been 8 months ago, broke, tired, convinced her life would always be a struggle with rent and dead-end jobs. That girl wouldn't recognize her life now, but she'd recognize the core of who Lena still was. Someone who believed in keeping promises and showing up when things got hard, and choosing honesty even when lies were easier. "I love you," she said to Caleb, because it was true and because she could. "I love you too," he replied, like it was the simplest truth in the world. And maybe it was. Maybe after all the complications and scandals and public scrutiny, love was actually the simple part. Everything else, the money, the family, the legacy, that was complicated. But choosing each other every single day, despite having every reason not to, that was the easiest decision Lena had ever made. Outside their window, New York kept moving, oblivious to one more love story in a city full of them. But this one was theirs, imperfect, hard-won, built on a foundation of mistakes and second chances and the stubborn refusal to give up on something real. Eleanor would have approved, difficult, manipulative, interfering Eleanor who'd seen past the lie to the truth underneath and had given them the space to find it themselves. Lena fell asleep on Caleb's shoulder, thinking about borrowed dresses and wrong turns, and how sometimes the worst decisions lead to the best outcomes. How love wasn't about deserving or earning or being perfect. It was about choosing every day to show up for another person even when it scared you. And she'd keep choosing this, choosing him, choosing Emma, choosing the messy, complicated, beautiful family they were building together. Not because a contract said so, but because some promises, the ones you make with your whole heart,